May 19th. And we have Selectman Heller on the phone, I believe.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Can you hear us, Selectman Heller?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, good. So I have to read some housekeeping stuff concerning remote participation. So pursuant to this board's authority, Selectman Heller will be participating remotely via telephone due to geographic distance. There is a quorum physically present, and all votes will be taken by roll call, but when, again, we normally do that anyway. Selectman Heller will be allowed to vote. And there's a remote participation checklist for which all of the conditions have been met, that there's a quorum outside of Selectman Heller. We've secured a room in a public building with a town-issued phone. We've made reasonable efforts to distribute any materials that will be used. The phone is working, and then if there are any technical difficulties, I'll suspend discussion while efforts are made to correct the problem. And if there's a disconnection, I'll note that fact in the minutes. So that's the boring housekeeping stuff. Announcements.
I went today to DPW Day.
And so did I.
Had an excellent time. I've got my bag here that they gave me. And I have a picture I want to show my fellow selectmen of that magnificent piece of equipment that shoots the snow up into the truck.
Beast?
Yes. And this is, as you know, we were able to purchase one this year, but the DPW would like a second one. And I think Commissioner Papasturgeon has told us it pays for itself in about one season because we're able to remove so much snow quickly without as much manpower overtime, because people have been working to clear the roads. So to then go back and have to clear all the snow out of parking spaces and things is tough. So
Right.
anyway, they love it. That looked great. The whole DPW day was a big success.
It was a lot. I was there at around 3 o'clock, and there were a lot of kids there. I think the DPW employees were having as much fun as the kids.
Yeah, they love it. Yeah, they love it.
And
Yeah, I was shown some earthworms and how to compost and learned a lot of stuff.
Yes. And this Sunday was the bike parade, which was, I think, a rousing success. There were a lot of bikers. It was reported in the press, 400 bikes.
Wow.
Selectman Green was there.
I went down to my basement, dusted off my bicycle, put some air on the tires, and I was rolling hard.
Right.
Wow, very good.
So that was good. And this Monday is the Memorial Day observance, and I believe Selectman
Franco.
I'm losing it. Selectman Franke is going to be one of the featured speakers. Roll calls tonight are going to be tough.
Yeah.
And for members of the public, I believe that the celebrations begin at 8:30 in front of Town Hall, and there'll be a bus, a tour going to the cemeteries in town and celebrations and remembrances at each of those before coming back to Town Hall.
But lots of people just come to the speeches and things at Town Hall. I mean, I think actually the parts in the cemeteries are very moving, but people should try to come at least to the Town Hall part if they can't make the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a little parade around this area, so you can come and you can join in.
Right. Should be a lot of fun. Okay, so let's move on to our calendar. We don't have anyone signed up for public comment, and we'll move on to our miscellaneous calendar. And first is the minutes from the last meeting, Tuesday, May 12th. Does anyone have any?
Yeah, I did have some.
Just pass them over to Kate. I did not have anything.
Did you have anything?
No.
Okay.
So I will move acceptance of the minutes with the Selectmen Daley's changes. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Oh, I missed Selectman Heller. Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Okay, cool.
Mr. Chairman, we also put in your packet a portion of the minutes from the meeting on January 20th, 2015 that relate to a licensing matter that we had incorrectly transcribed into the minutes. So I would appreciate your vote to vote these revised minutes for Tuesday, January 20th, 2015. They just made the distinction between hours for liquor license and hours for the common victualler license.
Right, so does anyone have any objection to the last vote, including those changes? So, seeing none, I will then vote aye, so it's unanimous. We've accepted the minutes. Moving on to item B, which is some temporary licenses. I'll move them in omnibus fashion. And they all look complete to me, and the police have reviewed them and okayed them. So I'll move acceptance of the temporary licenses and items B and C. So it's a question to permit to serve alcoholic beverages, non-sales on town property at Lars Anderson Auto Museum in connection with a corporate dinner reception to be held on June 2nd from 5:30 to 9:30 at 15 Newton Street. And I'll move granting a temporary all kinds alcoholic beverage license to Pine Manor College in connection with a wedding to be held on October 10th from 6 to 11 at 400 Heath Street. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we'll move on to our main calendar, which is Police Department commendations, and these are always a very happy and occasion for us and for the department, so I'll turn it over to the chief.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and congratulations
Thank you.
joining the board, and congratulations, Nancy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It is a happy night. We have some awards that were given out to several of our offices, and the critical thing to remember about these awards is that they were not selected by me or the superintendent. They were actually selected by their peers. And we choose one time a year to issue some of these awards, and I'll get to it, how we go about doing it. And we honor the people that have done it for the work that they've done during the year. They're here tonight with their family and friends and a number of officers from the department, and I think I'll get right to it. Last Friday, May 15th, Detective Julie McDonald was awarded the Investigative Achievement Award and the Victim Assistance Award by United States Attorney Carmen Ortiz at a ceremony at the federal courthouse in Boston. She received this recognition for an extensive investigation that she initiated during the summer of 2013. In 2013, during that summer, she responded to a home in Brookline to check on the welfare of two minors. While there, she began to gather information that led her to believe that these two minors were the victims of human trafficking. And I want to read from the write-up that U.S. Attorney Carmen Ortiz did. On August 2013, Special Agent Lena Award and Detective Kara Conley joined Detective Julie McDonald in investigating a human trafficking incident that involved two Brookline teenage girls who spent about a week in Dorchester working for a man they knew as Keys. Together, the investigators identified Keys as Miriam Kizzy, a Dorchester man who was an active member of the Thetford Street Buffaloes, a local street gang. The investigators worked for months with these victims, their families, and several teenage witnesses. They gathered extensive electronic evidence and physical evidence, executed search warrants on the locations that the crimes occurred, and corroborated the victim and witness testimony in a number of objective ways, building an unassailable case against Mr. Kizzy. While this Kizzy investigation was ongoing, Homeland Security investigations began an investigation into another incident involving the trafficking of young girls, which led to the identification of a second individual, Anthony Pledger, as the trafficker. During the course of that investigation, investigators were able to establish that Kizzy was also present during critical portions of the time that Pledger was recruiting his victims. Investigators also established that both Kizzy and Pledger were members of the Thetford Avenue Buffaloes, and they were working together to entice these girls. However, based on the work that was done by the investigators that was initiated by Detective McDonald, Pledger and Kizzy both were indicted together for human trafficking in February of 2014, and shortly before trial in March of this year, both pled guilty to several counts in the indictment, charging them with trafficking of minors. Kizzy, the target of the Brookline investigation, was sentenced to 153 months in prison, and Pledger, who was facing at least 10 years in prison, will be sentenced at the end of this month. I think what is real critical here is that when Julie McDonald went to that home, she conducted an extensive series of interviews. She was assisted by, and I'll talk about him in a minute, now Sergeant Russell O'Neill. But they spent a lot of time with these victims and their families. And they were able to develop a case. And very quickly on, they knew that the case grew outside of Brookline. And with that knowledge, they decided they were not going to hide anything, that they were going to bring it to the attention of the people that could help them expand the case. And they went to Boston, which led to the U.S. Attorney's Office, which led to Rhode Island, which led to various locations in the greater Boston area, and resulted in this case, this great case built on these two predators. And a lot of credit goes to Julie. She got a lot of credit on Friday. She got 2 awards. She was recognized for the, like I said, the Investigative Achievement Award, and probably what's even better, the Victim Assistance Award. So, Detective Julie McDonald. I have also a series of awards that are given from our department that I spoke to earlier. And this criteria was set up by a group of our officers when they designed a formal process to give commendations. And that was set up in 2010. So this is our 5th year being here to honor some of our officers. And how that works is during the year, we as the heads of the department, we ask our supervisors, our sergeants, who are the officers on the street, to recognize their officers when they do some excellent and above the normal police work. They're asked to write it up, to give their synopsis of the events, and tell us why they feel that they should be considered for a commendation. When that rises to the superintendent and I, it comes through the chain of command with the recommendations along the way. But we then choose whether they get a letter of commendation or a certificate of commendation. And there is a difference. And I think the easiest example I can give you is that a letter of commendation could go to an assisting officer during a good arrest. However, the certificate of commendation goes to that officer that got involved in the beginning. That is the initial officer, whether it's through an investigatory process or whether it's through self-initiated activity that they do on the street. So during the year, we have done a lot of commendations. As you know, we send them over here 4 times a year. But during February of the following year, there's a group that's put together that represent all divisions and assignments within the department, and they take a look at all the commendations that were issued, and they see who is deserving of a higher award. And tonight, we're going to talk about several of these higher awards, and I'll give you some reasons for them. And the first one would go to Sergeant Russell O'Neill, who actually, I think most of you met about a little over, well, not even 3 weeks ago, when he was in here to be promoted from detective and to sergeant. Sergeant O'Neill has been with the police department since June of 2006. And in the time that he has been with us, he has received a total of 5 commendations, including 2 for 2014. And those two were pretty indicative of him. I spoke a little bit about one, which was the one with Detective Julie McDonald, because him and Julie did the initial investigation, which got the ball rolling. He received a commendation for his work on that case. And the second case he got a commendation on was when we experienced a series of shopliftings of valuable jackets along the stores along Commonwealth Ave. The stores were both in Boston and Brookline. He developed the two suspects, a man and a woman. He got the information out. He staked the place out one night. Right after the stakeout began, he saw both subjects come down to one of our stores, I think it was the Ski Mart, and they went in the store, and he waited till they came outside, and they had shoplifted 2 or 3 valuable jackets. Both subjects had long records. Both subjects were placed under arrest, and a shoplifting spree, at least at that point, was stopped. And so for that, he gets a commendation medal for 5 total commendations thus far in his career. Sergeant? I want to recognize the second officer, Detective David Wagner. Detective Wagner has been with us since 2002. He joined us after several years with the Norfolk County Sheriff's Department, where he left there when he was in charge of the electronic bracelet program. This year, he too received 2 certificates of commendation that brought his total throughout his career with us to 5. The commendations that he earned this year were for, I think what epitomizes David, because I'm going to get to that because I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. But he's the type of individual that is always active. As part of his job, he takes it upon himself to make sure that he's aware of what's going on out on the street. And when he sees that we're experiencing crime problems, he's the first one to volunteer to go out. He finishes up his work inside, he goes out, and this year he did it on a lot of occasions, but it resulted in pretty good arrests on two occasions. And one of them, we were experiencing a lot of bicycle thefts. And he observed a group of young kids down Lower Beacon Street just driving aimlessly around the area. And he was able to watch them for about 25 minutes, and he saw one of them take out a bolt cutter and steal a bike from the scene. In the interim, he had called for other cars to be in the area, so at the end, all 5 subjects were stopped. One was arrested because he stole the bike that was attached to the pole. But each one of those other individuals had bikes that they could not account for, or the stories that they tried to give us were really off the charts. So we know what they're all in here for. One was arrested and at that point, those 5, I'm sure, didn't look forward to coming back to Brookline to steal bikes. But the second time, we were experiencing a lot of package breaks, which this year really spiked on us. And David went down to the area around Linden Street here to keep an eye on things. And at one point, he saw a guy acting in a kind of a weird manner around a car, ducking behind the car, getting on the phone, putting down his backpack, picking up his backpack. So he made an investigatory stop on the street. The subject ended up letting him look through his pack, and he had a considerable supply of crystal meth that he was going to sell to a home in Brookline. For those 2 reasons, he got commendations this year, and he too was going to be awarded the medal for his 5-year commendation medal. The next award is a Departmental Medal of Valor. This medal is awarded to a Brookline police officer for a heroic deed and exceptional meritorious conduct involving exemplary courage, risk, and danger to his or her personal safety. And this will be awarded to Deputy Superintendent Andrew Lipson, who was here 3 weeks ago to receive his promotion. Deputy Superintendent Lipson has been a member of the police department since September of 1998. He's been nominated for and tonight will receive the police department's Medal of Valor for his actions in an apartment building on Beacon Street on the night of Friday, March 7th, 2014. On that night, Deputy Superintendent Lipson was placed in a position where he needed to do what no police officer ever wants to do. That was when he was confronted with a situation where he feared for the safety of his officers as well as his own safety. He fired his gun and struck another human being. After this took place, the officers that were on scene immediately gave first aid to the victim and made sure that he was quickly transported to the Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital for treatment. Within days, to the good fortune of all, but especially the victim and his family, the person was released from the hospital. We know that he is currently receiving treatment that he needs and deserves from the Veterans Administration to get back on his feet. And from what we've been told, he's doing very well. But that's only speaks a little bit about Deputy Superintendent Lipson. For today, based on his activities last year, he's the first Brookline police officer to have earned 20 commendations in his career, which I think is quite an achievement, because he's only been here since 1998. And that just goes to show the quality of work that he's done throughout the time. And I want to just hit on a couple of them as I go through it. He started out, as everybody else does, as a patrol officer, but you could see that he had a lot going from at that point. And an example would be that on the intersection of Park Street and Washington Street one night, he took notice of a man that was acting kind of strange in a suspicious manner, going back and forth. He walked up to the man and asked if he could talk to him. And one thing led to another, and he got in a struggle with the man. And the struggle continued for a little bit, eventually leading to the subject's arrest and removal of a loaded firearm from that subject. I don't think we know what he was up to, other than the fact that he was not licensed to have that firearm. But that really started his career going forward, and he was a sergeant. He went to the Community Service Division as a sergeant, and then we assigned him as a lieutenant at night, and then eventually to take over the Detective Bureau, where his skills really came to be. And just to mention a couple of his cases that he was intimately involved in, but also supervised. He's really taken us to another level as far as technology goes. And an example would be over at Kirkman's Market, actually the liquor store across the street. There was a guy come out of the store and he had a case of beer, and he got jumped by 3 individuals. They took his beer, they took his money, they took his cell phone, and they jumped in a car and took off. He didn't really get a good look at them, so they didn't have a heck of a lot to go with except from that cell phone. With that cell phone, and with their tactics of how to do interviews and how to follow up on things and how to search the phone. And first of all, they did them all with search warrants before we were made to do them with search warrants. That's a credit to him. They built a case, and the case led only through cell phones and phone calls and text messages, and resulted in the arrest of 3 individuals from Everett for the armed robbery, which I thought was a great case, because you didn't need a witness with the evidence that we had. But I think you'll also remember a couple of years back, there was several BU, or robberies around BU. We had 3 separate groups of people in here that robbed individuals. The final robbery was done by 2 individuals that stabbed the victim. Deputy Superintendent Lipson headed up all 3 of those investigations. We had an arrest in all 3 of those investigations. They were subjects that were totally unrelated. Some were young kids. The 2 kids that stabbed the guy were older, and the other kids were from Quincy and Braintree. They were totally different, but they found Brookline for whatever reason and committed the robberies. The investigation that they done resulted in all of those arrested, in a total of 7 arrests, a total of 4 armed robberies and a stabbing. And I think it reduced a lot of fear in our community, but also in the BU community, which I think is good for us, good for everybody. I could go on the arrests that he has made, has been involved in, but I think the key is you always take a look at what somebody does for the people that work for him. And I think it's safe to say that he truly developed the people that were fortunate enough to be assigned to him. So even though he's in a new position now, the Detective Bureau will function just as good, and then it'll be even better than it's ever been. So Those two awards, the Department Medal of Valor and the 20-year Commendation Award, will go to Deputy Superintendent Andrew Lipson. Now, for the Police Officer of the Year Award. Under our new system, which was 5 years new now, but this is our fifth Police Officer of the Year medal that we gave out. And it's to be presented to a Brookline police officer each calendar year that has distinguished himself or herself conspicuously by exceptional conduct, outstanding performance, or extraordinary contributions in accomplishing the mission statement of the Brookline Police Department. The recipient of this award shall receive a medal and an award bar, and the award board will forward the nominees to the chief. The nominee this year is Detective David Wagner. As I said earlier, David has been with the department since 2002. We were fortunate to get him. I watched the way he worked when we assigned him to Sector 2, which is the area from Harvard Street up to Beacon Street and down to St. Mary Street, on this side, on the St. Mary side. And he knew just about everybody on his route, and that was impressive. When we were having trouble with crime going on down there, I saw David in action one day when so many people knew David, so many people came up to David and wanted to give him information. He was really what a beat cop should be all about. And that was really impressive, I thought. He never afraid to get out, never talk to people, but he eventually wanted a different assignment, and he asked to go into the Detective Bureau as our evidence officer. And I think we don't have to look far to read the problems that police departments have with their evidence room. Another thing that's safe to say, you can go in our evidence room and eat off the floor. That's the kind of person that David is. When we were getting accredited, the first place that the accreditation people come to look is your evidence room. And they go in there and they say, we're going to go through your computer and they're going to point out X amount of cases. Go find them. And that's exactly what we did. And once we were successfully through the evidence room, which was done in a heartbeat, the people felt very good, and they said, we think you're going to be fine, because if your evidence room is any sign of where your police department would be, you deserve to be accredited, and that's to David. Now, he does that. Normally, that's a full-time job. David doesn't approach it as a full-time job. He wouldn't have gotten the accommodations that he received this year if he did. We have a computer program where we put in our problems, we put in our community problems that we want solved, we put in our crime problems, and we want our officers to read it every day and take care of things. And it could be everything from the cars parked illegally over at Downsfield to crime taking place. Well, David makes himself aware where crime is occurring, and he will wrap up his business at a certain time, and then he'll get in an unmarked car and go out. And he'll patrol an area where we're having problems. And those 2 arrests that I told you about this year are not all that David has done over his career. He's made a number of arrests by going about things that way. And I think he really is an example to our younger officers, because here is a guy that could have a job that didn't require you going out in the street, and David wants to go out in the street. And I think the officers that sat on that awards board really recognized that and realized that. From my perspective, and I know because the superintendent and I were talking about it tonight, we don't have to worry about what David does. David will do any assignment that he's asked or that he thinks he should do. He does it willingly, and he does it with a smile. And by him going out, I think it really sets the tone of what we expect the officers to do. And we didn't tell David to go out. He started this on his own. He just wants to keep doing it, wants to keep getting involved. One thing he's taken on in this role is he's not afraid to talk to the younger officers like a, I don't want to say a father, that's kind of, but what should I say, as a veteran. And he talks to them, and he's not afraid to tell them when they should be doing something a little bit better. I'd say that he's a really good mentor for the young people, because they always have to come to him to get their evidence to go to court. He's always going to talk to them, he's always going to congratulate them if they do a good job, and that goes an awful long way. And we're honored tonight to give the Police Officer of the Year Award for 2014 to Detective David Wagner. That wraps it up, and I appreciate you listening and your time, and I hope, I know these officers appreciate it as well, and their families.
So I'll start by saying, wow, and thank you so much for all you do for us. People move to Brookline for a lot of reasons. We hear they moved to Brookline for the schools, but I think they moved to Brookline not only for the schools, but because they move here and they feel safe. And one of the main reasons they feel safe is because of what you guys do, and I have to thank you for that, and I thank your families for supporting you. And we now have a new thing that we know we can aspire to, and that's eating off the evidence room floor. So that's another reason to move to Brookline.
Yeah, I want to say, wow, I echo what Selectman Waschinsky said. These instances show your dedication, your tenacity, your intelligence, and your courage. And it's, we always expect a lot of our police department, but the four of you are certainly, give us not only what we expect, but more on top of that. Thank you very much.
I'll echo my colleagues' congratulations and joy in celebrating you all tonight. I want to echo in particular something that our chair said, Selectman Waschinsky, that I think you would all agree that your families played a large role in your success tonight and your recognition this evening. So thank you to all of you. I see many of you in the room. I also want to highlight the fact that this is just a slice of the good work that happens every day in the Brookline Police Department. So while I celebrate all of you, I celebrate your fellow officers as well who do quality work, and look forward to recognize them in future years.
I'd also like to echo the sentiments of other members of the board. When I read about the human trafficking incident, I was sort of shocked that things like this happen in Brookline. I sort of knew that, but many people don't realize that Brookline's not in a bubble, and many of the problems of the outside world sort of infringe on us. So that I particularly appreciate, the work of Detective McDonald working that case and bringing it to a successful conclusion. I would just observe that the commendations and other awards suggest to me a police department that is focused and disciplined and doing the type of job that unfortunately many police departments in this country don't do. So we're very proud of that, and urge you to continue doing the great work that you do. I know everyone in Brookline appreciates the safety and safe environment that you provide or help provide. And I congratulate you on the commendations and the awards, and thank you for your work.
Selectman Heller, if you'd like to say, you're going to have to speak up.
It's hard. I'm having a little trouble hearing. All of a sudden it cut out, but I do hear now. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I just want to add my congratulations to these officers, to the chief, and to the whole department, really. You're very professional, and that shows in not only these awards, but all the things you do every day. And Brookline citizens appreciate it. We do feel safe, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yep.
What are we doing?
Photos. Usually the We're going to break a little bit, Nancy, until the room clears.
Okay.
Andrew Lipson's dad was on the advisory committee.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. I know it's
Right. He was the head of the board. He was the
I guess I have to wear a tie every meeting? Well, thank you, appreciate it.
I met you when you were at Ansley's. Ansley Phillips.
Oh, that's right.
This is David Treach from the Housing.
Yeah, definitely. Hi.
Patrick Dover, I'm director of the housing.
Oh, hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I forgot to report on something important. I can't believe I forgot, but it seems like it was longer ago than just last
Go for it.
Thursday. We had the senior health fair at the senior center, and it was a great day, very well attended. We had, our main speaker was Dr. Dennis Selko, who's the husband of Polly Selko, our Assistant Director of Regulatory Planning in the Planning Department, and he was great. He was, his talk was just perfect for the audience about, tips as to what you can look for, if you think you're having some memory problems, what you should do about it, how you can try to avoid or stave off the day you might get to the point where you have serious memory problems. We also heard from another doctor who was a nutritionist who was telling people about food and, what's good and to eat and not good to eat. We had, I participated in the Tai Chi class. That was very good. They also had meditation for brain health and drumming. I didn't get to participate in the drumming, but I want to thank our town departments who participated and were there to answer questions, and of course, the staff at the senior center did a great job. And also, I want to especially thank our partners at the 100 Center Communities, the Hebrew Senior Life people, who actually got the grant to do the publicity, and their staff did a lot of the, I was on the planning committee, as was Ruth Ann and Julie Washburn from the senior center, but I've got to admit that all the staff at 100 Center Street did a lot of the the more detailed work, and they had their food service people provided healthy lunches for everybody. So it was a great day, and want to thank everyone who participated.
Okay. So let's move on to the next item on our calendar, item 6, Finance Department Personnel, the question of authorizing the filling of a vacancy in the position of Senior Office Assistants in the Treasurer Division of the Finance Department. Mr. Cirillo.
Good evening. I'm here to fill a position, get authorization to fill a position. The person who is currently in the position is retiring after, I believe, 10 or 11 years of service. Her last day will be June, the end of June, and as we have a tax due date in August, I wanted to get a head start on this and try to fill a position and get some training done so that we have enough staff to support the walk-in payments on August 1st. So with your permission, I'd like to fill this position.
I know it's been your practice, Mr. Cirillo, in the past to cross-train your employees. Is that your intention going forward?
Absolutely. I plan to cross-train all new employees coming into the Finance Department, not just the Treasury Division, but all of the divisions. There's going to be movement in the department in the next month or so. We have one staff person going out on a leave, medical leave, and because of the cross-training that's going on right now, we're back staffing that with a person who's in a different division, who is interested in learning payroll, and is now currently being trained on that. So when the person comes back from their medical leave, we'll then have additional staff capacity. So it's one of my philosophies. It's important to move people in and around in all of the divisions. One, because it makes their jobs more interesting.
Selectman Green.
I assume that in the process of looking for staff, you make sure that the universe of people that are solicited is diverse. And I just want to make the statement that I hope that in filling this position, you ensure that the people who are looked at are very diverse in terms of racial makeup as well as, gender.
Absolutely.
I know it's what we all do, but I guess I'm suggesting that, it's something that we need to just make our focus so that it actually happens where it's appropriate.
Absolutely. About 14 to 15% of the Finance Department staff is minority status. About 80% of the staff are females. About 50% of the management are females. We have a handicapped employee in our division, our department. So we actually seek out to try to bring different people of different experiences into our department.
Okay.
And by the way, it's not just because I think that that's, the fair thing to do. I've always been of the opinion that, diversity is not just good because it's the right thing, but because it gives you different perspectives and helps avoid problems that you can run into where everyone is thinking along the same lines from the same experiences and same perspectives. In my job, I see that all the time where, when we have different perspectives, we notice things that would otherwise be overlooked and avoid problems in subtle ways, but I think very important ways. So.
No, I absolutely agree.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Then I'll move that we authorize the filling of a vacancy in the position of Senior Office Assistant in the Treasurer's Division of the Finance Department. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. And chair votes aye. Thank you.
Good. I believe the next two items are mine as well.
Okay, so we're moving on to the Dummer Street pilot agreement. So we're going to be talking about approving and executing a pilot agreement. And then, actually, why don't we talk about that, and then we'll move on to the other items.
All right. Just in I'm appearing to discuss two pilot agreements this evening. But before I do, I just want to make a couple of general comments.
So what we'll do, we'll take the, let's do 132 first.
132 first?
Yes, so
All
this
right.
is item 8.
That's fine. I can easily do that. Again, just making a couple of comments. First, the town has developed a real strong negotiating team for these pilots, and it really has served the town well. I just want to personally thank Jocelyn Murphy, the town council, and Gary McCabe, the chief assessor, for their help in these negotiations. Over the last 2 or 3 years, we've developed quite an interesting dynamic, and I'm not sure if you've noticed, but the pace of pilots have picked up. We've had 3 settlements of pilots in the last month. These here are 2 of them, and prior one that came in, and we're on the verge of another one in the near future. And of course, we dealt with the Boston University renegotiation, and so we've had a number of successes in this area, and I frankly, it's because of these 2 individuals that we've had success, and I want to mention their names. Second, I noted, I've spoken to you for a number of years about how long it takes to develop a pilot. I mean, when we were dealing with the Boston University pilot, it took us 6 years. When we dealt with the first Children's Hospital pilot, it took us 4 years. Well, here's 132 Carlton Street, and the second Children's Hospital pilot, and it took us 1 month. And some of that is
You've
because...
beaten them into submission, Steve.
Yeah, well, we reach an accommodation. They promised to pay me money, and I promised not to reverse their sewage. But because we have so many pilots, I think it's become the norm. And nonprofits who are very resistant, most nonprofits who are very resistant to having conversations like this, are now willing to have a conversation. They may say no. Of course, it's their legal right to say no, but we're having more and more conversations. And that bodes well for not only Brookline, but for the rest of the communities in Massachusetts who are trying to follow us in this. The third comment I want to make is that we're really fortunate in dealing with both of these negotiations, speak across the table with some real professionals. Mr. Dober Patrick Dober from the Housing Authority and Charles Weinstein from the Children's Hospital were very professional and they were very helpful in getting this done. And I also want to mention David Treach, who's here this evening, the chairman of the Housing Authority, who also sat in those negotiations, was extremely helpful in these negotiations. So I want to thank them as well. Now, on to the individual pilots themselves. You want to deal with 132 Carlton first?
Yeah, let's do that.
132 Carlton Street was originally owned by Boston University. It was the home of the chancellor, and it was taxable property. Even though we have an agreement with Boston University for pilots, Boston University is our largest taxpayer in the community. And their housing, a great deal of their housing, is taxable. The university decided to sell this property off, and Children's Hospital decided to purchase it. And they want to make it into a patient family inn, sort of like Ronald McDonald House or the property that's out in 241 Kent Street. And so that's, it goes from a taxable parcel to now a tax-exempt parcel. This is a policy, or the pilot agreement is based on the policies that were established by the Board of Selectmen in 2007. That is that we have a 25% pilot. That would be 25% of what they would be paying if they were paying taxes. There is no phase up. It goes immediately to 25%. It's a 10-year term for renegotiations. So it's a very good policy, a good pilot. The first year should be roughly $20,000-ish, $20,000 of annual payment, and it should increase depending on what the value of the taxes or the tax rate or the value of the property is. It will increase. And so this is a good, solid pilot, and I recommend you accept it. I was on the phone with Charles Weinstein this evening. He meant to be here, and he had a conflict with another meeting, so he apologizes, and he endorses this. Obviously, he signed the agreement as well.
Anyone have?
I want to begin by recognizing you for your hard work on this. I know that you've congratulated several other people, but I think you're selling yourself a little bit short. I know that you were instrumental in the Lincoln Lane Institute report, which is sort of the foundation for this type of work in Greater Boston, and I would argue nationally. So you deserve as much credit as anybody else for the diligence you paid to this and your hard work over the years.
Thank you. It's just stay at it. That's the only thing you can do. I am the water torture treatment for nonprofits. They just say yes just to shut me up.
And actually, let me just step back for the viewing audience. What a pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes, and tax-exempt institutions who use property for tax-exempt purposes are exempt from taxes. So these are payments that we're negotiating to help defray some of the costs of services that we in fact do provide to these nonprofits. Even though they don't have to pay, they still get services when they call 911, the police and the fire respond, and that's in recognition, and the pilots are in recognition of services such as that, and the streets
The
are...
snow plowing, after this past winter.
Right, the streets are plowed, and the streets are paved, and the streets are cleaned, and so...
Well, and if they have a break-in, somebody comes, if they have a 911 medical emergency, somebody comes, so I think it's very appropriate that they do engage in these, and I too thank you for
Thank you.
your...
Appreciate that. This is the 20th pilot we've had in 6 years, so that's impressive. The town should be pleased with that. The annual amount that's being generated now is over $800,000, and soon to be over $1 million in just a few years out. It'll be over $1 million per year. As you know, on many of our pilots, we've ramped them up, and some of those phase-ups to 25% are long terms, because some of these properties have a lot of land and not a lot of cash, so we phase it up over a period of time, say 25 years to get to 25%. And so there's far more growth in your annual collection of pilots that will be coming in the future.
I do have one question about both of these agreements, but I think it's even more pressing for this particular one that's in front of us, the 132 Carlton. I noticed that there's a clause in here that allows the hospital to participate in oil purchasing consortium and other supply purchasing. I take it that's sort of a boilerplate agreement?
Yes. There's a little history behind that. First of all, yes, that was one of my ideas to try to incentivize the nonprofits.
A carrot, if you will.
Yeah, carrot, and maybe it takes their annual cost and deflates it a bit. I hate to use that word right now, but reduces it by the savings they make on oil. But in addition to that, in a body of law, a contract may not be, of this nature, may not be binding unless there's give and take. Mm-hmm. And some of the pilot agreements in other communities, there's the nonprofit giving to the community, but nothing from the community going back to the nonprofit. So we built this in to provide the legal structure for us to have recourse if the pilot isn't collected.
Okay. Anyone else? Selectman Heller, if this is your opportunity, if you have anything?
No, I don't have any questions. It seemed to me a reasonable agreement. I reviewed it and supportive of the idea of the pilot.
Okay. Then I will move approval of the pilot agreement with Children's Hospital Corporation in connection with the property located at 132 Carlton Street. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Now, we'll move backward on the calendar to, find it. the pilot agreement with the Brookline Housing Authority in connection with the property at 86 Dummer Street, which is the new property, building that's being built.
This is an interesting pilot, Mr. Chairman, in that it's slightly different from the model that we've used in the past, and there are reasons for that. First of all, there's a private-public ownership mix. It's not totally owned by the Housing Authority. Second of all, the property has permanent affordability restrictions. And so we've agreed, the Board of Assessors and the Housing Authority negotiated on what the proper value should be for these affordable housing restricted units. And from that, we based our pilot 100% of what would be taxed on a reduced value. It's different from, first of all, the Housing Authority and the ownership of 86 Domer receive a benefit from this. That's why we're doing this, to help in any way we can in helping support public housing in this community. It's important to the community. But second of all, it provides some liquidity for this property, particularly in the first few years when they're filling up and ramping up to full occupancy. So it was a different structure. Instead of, the value is deflated, but the percentage of the pilot is at 100%. It's a 2-year ramp up to full pilot, so the first year should be roughly $12,000. The second year would be reach the full pilot payment, and that would be roughly $25,000. Again, it's subject to the tax rate changes. Frankly, the value isn't going to change very much because it's restricted values. And so those numbers could be fluid, but not very fluid, because the tax rate really doesn't change all that much. So we should anticipate that. There's also a 5-year renegotiation point, which is similar to agreements that we have in many of our pilot agreements. Some of them, like the 132 Carlton, have a 10-year renegotiation. Boston University had a 4-year negotiation. They're all over the map, and most of them are 5 years. So that is the type and structure of this pilot. Now, what I like to do, frankly, is turn this over to Patrick Dober, the Director of the Housing Authority, to make comments on behalf of the Housing Authority.
Okay. Mr. Dober? Or Mr. Treach? Your choice.
Good evening, everybody, and special hello to Mr. Green and Ms. Heller. Look forward to working with you both.
Thank you.
Steve covered it well. We don't believe in repeating things much. We had, I think, a fair negotiation with the town. As Steve pointed out, it's a hybrid ownership structure. Most of our housing is strictly publicly owned. Any affordable housing that's built these days is always built with the primary financing source being low-income housing tax credits. And the housing tax credits come from private corporations, and in return, they provide equity to build the housing. And in order to transfer those tax credits and create value for them, you have to have a private ownership structure that is a taxpayer, because they're tax credits in order to make them valuable. So the owner per se is an entity with the private investors being the limited partner. We're the general partner, that is the Housing Authority. We're responsible for managing the property, entering into contracts with the management company. As Steve pointed out, the housing is 100% permanently affordable. And it's on land, it's on a ground lease on Public Housing Authority land for 99 years. So in those respects, the ground lease, the control, and the permanent affordability, it looks and feels and acts strictly like public housing, and there's this structure in there that creates a private ownership component in order to generate the financing. Now, the Housing Authority, in general, has a pilot, and has for years, with the town, where our public housing pays an agreed-to formula to the town for our public housing. One way to do this might have been to roll it right into the rest of our properties and consider it with the rest of our pilot, but the decision was it's sort of technically different enough that it should be treated as a separate entity. And as Steve said, I think we had nice negotiation and considered all these various points and came up with a reasonable agreement.
I'm delighted that we could help you out by making this taxable in some way.
As I alluded, our starting point was we thought it might be just fine as a public housing property, which has a pilot at a lower rate. But we like to be a good partner with the town. We thought it was a fair agreement, and we can support this, so.
Any comments, questions? So I'll move acceptance of the pilot agreement with the Housing Authority in connection with the property located at 86 Dummer Street. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. And the chair votes aye. Moving on to the question of waiving and discontinuing inspectional fees for Housing Authority properties. Mr. Dover?
Yeah. David, would you like to, I always defer to the chairman if he'd like to.
Mr. Treach?
Well, I came, so I might as well. I do want to make one slight point about our housing and 86 Dummer, and that is, when we say affordable housing, we're talking about a different affordable housing than the town develops in its course of developing affordable housing. Our profile is low-income families and low-income individuals, and we're the only ones in town who create new housing for low-income, for the profile we do. And so permanently affordable at that level is kind of special. We believe so, and you probably may have heard me say this before. It's really an opportunity for low-income families and their kids to break the cycle of poverty by having children go through the school system here, get the support they can, and it's just a tremendous thing. It's way beyond just housing, and so we feel particularly good about that. In terms of the fees, the inspection fees, our attitude is this is what gets folded into the pilot. This is what the pilot agreement is. It's an agreement to take all the traditional fees that others might be looked at and recognize that our situation, our relationship with the town, the mission we have, the people we serve, make it a little bit of a different animal. And so that to us is what the pilot agreement is about. And so our request is to fold this fee into that. And that's what we've come with, and I think that's what we've gotten support for.
I guess the question I have is, why now? I presume these fees have been in place forever, or have they?
Well, they have been, but there's sort of been a long-term confusion, I guess is the word. Years ago, we were presented with a bill, I'd say, that we thought was unusual, went back and talked to folks in the town about it, and they looked at it and said, yeah, this doesn't seem quite right, and we've spent a whole lot of time trying to make sense out of it all. So it's sort of been in contention. And this is not a blame game. This is both of us looking at each other, scratching our head and saying, no, we need to make better sense out of this. So with that said, there were a number of years where this fee wasn't collected under an agreement that we need to work this out. So now we're here. This is working it out.
Trying to work it out.
Is there anything?
Yeah, well, I read the language you cited, which I don't think gives you a legal basis for saying you don't have to pay these fees. Nevertheless, I am very sympathetic, and I agree that I think you do a very important service to the town of Brookline, and I have always been delighted to be as supportive as I can. But I do want to raise an issue that I think is a safety issue, and it's over on the Route 9 area in front of your High Street housing, where there is not really a safe crossing there. And the town is trying to create a safe pedestrian crossing there,
Yes.
which I think will benefit,
Across Route 9, you're talking
Across
about the
Route 9?
Gateway project. Yep,
will benefit your residents.
yes.
And I think there's been a little feeling on the part of the town that there hasn't been as much cooperation from you guys as we might like to see.
Wow. Well, let's clarify that a second. So first of all, we think it's a terrible pedestrian situation, and we're looking forward to making it safer for the town and our residents in particular. We have one, let's call it a hiccup, and that is the town needs some of our land in order to do this project, and our land is underwritten by the federal government. So in order for us to transfer land to the town, which we want to do, it has to meet the requirements of HUD. And that has to do with appraisals, and that has to do with the town being at a certain stage in the development of a project where they can start to negotiate with an abutter. So two things. One is the town has not reached the point, as I understand it, where they can actively negotiate with us. And second, when they do, they're going to find us, as they have in past meetings, eager to support this project with the clarification that HUD has to approve the deal. And that's a matter of appraisals. But we've been meeting, I've met with the planning department for years now on this project. And, the framework of the meetings have always been, we're supportive, we're in favor of this project. We have some legitimate concerns. We have a building that's probably within 20 feet of where the new road alignment's going to be. And we've told the town that in the design, we're great believers in design solutions, but there needs to be a solution there that takes care of noise, any potential pollution, those sorts of things. But those are details that I think will get worked out. I'm sure they will. But we've been, yeah, so I'm a little surprised by characterizing it that way. And if, and we'll make sure that the planning department, we'll send the message tomorrow to make sure that in fact they're accurately reading what we're sending, or we're sending what we want them to read. And that is, we support this project.
Okay?
Let me start by saying, I think for the record, we should say that we're talking about the building inspection fee that has to do with identifying potential fire hazards, and a master box service fee, which has to do with fire response. So I think the viewing public should know exactly what we're sort of having a discussion about.
Right, and the total is about 17,000 a year, and then 63,000 that has accrued to date, so.
I share Selectman Daley's legal interpretation, but I also share her sentiment that the Housing Authority is a great partner to the town and does a fabulous job breaking the cycle of poverty, to use Mr. Treach's words. And many of the residents of the Housing Authority are active contributing members of this community, sit on boards and commissions, and are actively engaged in civic endeavors. So in my mind, no difference between somebody who lives in a housing authority unit and somebody who lives in a non-housing authority unit. I'll add to the reasons that I support this motion, that it's my understanding that this is done in other communities as well. It's not unprecedented. So it's something that is not out of place, and I don't see a reason why we in Brookline shouldn't join that trend.
No.
I'll, too, indicate my support, and I'm glad to hear the statement of cooperation on the Gateway East, because that's an important project to the town. It's an important project to your properties at High Street, so High and Walnut. So that, it's in everyone's interest that the project move ahead and we get it done. There's been some hiccups with the project recently, which we hope are being ironed out in terms of bicycle accommodations. That kind of held it. It's being pushed back a year, but we hope that has the log jam, the political log jam, we hope has been broken. with
At
some recent
least the
developments.
bicycles won't provide too much pollution.
Well,
Right.
especially because this project won't happen without some federal dollars, which,
And state
and
dollars.
state dollars, which won't
Mostly
be
state.
circling forever. So
Right.
we're under a little bit of pressure.
Plus, we
Make sure-
need to coordinate it with Brookline Place, so we don't have a giant multi-year mess. You only have a shorter mess, but we have to have the mess to move ahead. So why don't we do this, the next item, and then we'll do a vote, if that's okay. The next item is an update on housing authority projects.
Okay, you have in front of you a double-sided sort of page of highlights, the 2014, 2015 highlights of the BHA. And while you're looking for that, let me just do a little intro. I don't believe there's a municipality in the state that has a better relationship between a housing authority and a municipality. I just don't buy it. And I was looking to see if the police chief was here. We work wonderfully with the police chief. I mean, they are just terrific with us. And we get profiles of crime within our geography, our public housing. And one of the things every year we find is that the profile of crime in the public housing areas within Brookline is no different or less than in the general areas of Brookline. And that's in part because our residents are terrific, but also because the police department is just fabulous partners with us and walk and talk and all the sorts of things that you might think might be problematic with lots of kids concentrated in an area. Well, they're not. The other is we just do a lot of collaboration in this town. There's just a lot of partnership. Steps to Success, which you know we support and are part of, and helped found in the program, is a phenomenal program. Most of the Steps to Success kids live with us. And, you know, Brookline Foundation, I mean, it's just like terrific. So hopefully by now you found the 2 pages. So I don't need to read it to you, I'll just hit the highlights, and that is, Dummer Street's a big deal to us, and you've got, I think, a photo somewhere in your file, and if you ever get a chance, go take, you'll certainly be invited to the to the ribbon cutting by the end of the year. But you should just drive by. It's just phenomenal. It's just going, it's on budget, it's almost on time. We had a little weather problem this winter. But the design is terrific. It also includes a new park in the middle that's going to serve not just the residents of the new development, but the residents in the surrounding development. It's going to be a better situation. It's going to be more accessible, and we're very happy with how it's coming together. We wanted to let you know in the second part that we do over $1.5 million capital repairs annually to our development, and while that's a big chunk of change and we manage lots of projects, the $200,000 to $300,000 that we have been getting over the last number of years in CDBG has really helped. In fact, it allows us to do those special things that we might not have money to do that makes a difference to our residents and to the maintenance of our buildings. It's really important to us. And we have an ongoing list of projects and priorities. As money comes in, we are ready to go. And years ago, some of you may have been around when we were having trouble keeping up with spending the money that we were getting from the town. It's not an issue anymore. Things are out there getting done. Things are being kept up. The third thing, and I'm not going to go through the details of this, is one of the things that really separates the Brookline Housing Authority from other housing authorities are the services we provide our residents. We think it's beyond providing housing. We think we're managing people's homes and environments and growing environments. So we provide we have a contractual relationship with Brookline Community Mental Health. There's a social worker whose salary comes out of our money so that they are familiar with and can serve our residents. As I said, we're deeply involved with Steps to Success. We have free lunch programs in our elderly developments. We do a lot of partnering. It's really about providing an environment where people can thrive, which is more than just housing. And you've got the list there. We have a list of the collaborators that we work with, the food pantry, the early education program, senior center, all that. I guess I would just end by saying, and we have a plan. We spent last year doing a strategic plan. we've got some real challenges ahead of us. When public housing was built, it was a long time ago, and there were different standards and room sizes and construction sizes and what people thought of public space and how you access and egress these spaces. And since that time, while we have had a fair amount of operating monies coming to us from state and federal government, the capital money, the repair money has been way under what anybody could use to keep the buildings in the repair they want. If you compare the monies we put into it compared to one of the private residential properties on Beacon Street or elsewhere in Brooklyn, it's really astounding that we do as good a job as we do. And yet, buildings have lifespans and systems have lifespans. And we have some that are coming close to the end. There are a couple of buildings, I won't tell you which because I don't want to scare you, when we need new parts for electrical stuff, we don't go to manufacturers, we go to antique dealers. It's not a pretty thing, but that's what we do, and sooner or later, we're going to have to do a little big, think of it, and that was what the strategic plan is. So we've got things we're working on, and the only thing I can say in conclusion is we're going to be seeing you more. We'll be back here treating you like a partner, treating you like a collaborator, willing to give stuff and asking for more. And other than that, I think, any questions?
Yeah, I actually have a question, sort of off topic, but I do want to say that your highlights were really very, very interesting, well done, and really made me think that you're doing an incredible job, and I'd like to learn more. And I'll come by and get you to give me a tour and sort of educate me on, some of the things you're doing and some of your plans for the future. One little issue that someone asked me about, and I had a little experience with, and that is visitor parking at 20 High Street. Is there any?
Visitor parking
I almost got my car towed as a
at
result.
22 High Street.
Right.
Do we have some visitor?
Yeah, we do tow cars at 22 High Street in order to make sure our residents have places to park, but we do have a system for a visitor permit. It's just a question of whoever you're coming to visit, they can get in touch with the property manager. We can issue a visitor pass for a couple weeks, for a day. We issue semi-permanent passes to caregivers who come in and work with residents. And if you want to get in touch with me, Mr. Green, I'll be glad to make the arrangement if you have a particular situation.
And I don't have a particular situation. I just almost had my car towed a couple weeks ago. We worked it out, no problem, and it was an issue that one of the residents said that they're concerned with.
Yeah, well,
I can pass along
Okay.
the permit process, so.
Okay, any other questions, comments? I'll end it just by saying I'm a neighbor of one of your properties, and you guys have always been a good neighbor, as I hope I've been. And, right. So we need to vote on the waiving and discontinuing the inspection fees. So all those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair will vote aye. So you've got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to item 9, which is Mr. McGrody. A question of approving and transmitting to the advisory committee reserve fund transfer in the amount of $25,000 for veterans benefits. Mr. McGrody.
Thank you. Good evening. Unfortunately, the expenses have been up since last year. A lot of that, I think, has to do with some increases in healthcare costs. Also, the winter. Looking at the projections, we started high last summer compared to the summer before, but then we got our costs down a little bit, and that's by getting people to work. And then when January came, it peaked up again. And we're running about, at the end of March, we were over 9,000 over we were the year before, and we'll be 14 or 15,000 by the end of the year. And we're also looking at, I have put in a request to pay for one funeral. It was a wife of one of our veterans who's receiving 115 benefits and doesn't have the funds to pay for a funeral. And I'm aware of 2 other veterans who've passed recently. One was in subsidized housing and didn't leave anything, and I anticipate the family will be requesting aid also. Another veteran had means but left nobody, and I talked to the lawyer that will be the conservator, and they may need help burying the person, and we'll put a lien on the estate, and when the estate goes through probate, we'll recover that money, but we'd still have to front it for this year. So in just about $6,000 in funeral costs coming up for 3 veterans. So between them, we're looking at in the low 20s, and I may be a little short of Memorial Day, so I projected $25,000.
We get some of this back beyond.
We do.
Yeah.
Most of the 115 benefits will get 75% back. It's 50% reimbursement on the funeral.
Okay.
It doesn't come to the office, it goes directly to the general fund.
Right. Any questions?
So I noticed that we did a reserve fund transfer, I think, in FY14 as well for you.
We did.
So I'm wondering if this is sort of a trend that we anticipate going forward, if we need to take a look at the actual budget for the department and increase it.
We got a small increase to accomplish some of the costs, and just some of the ceremonies and some of those costs have gone up. We're still trying to hold our costs at what they should be. I mean, there's some good news, too. The VA has made some incredible changes in the last 18, 24 months, and responsiveness and care for veterans is appreciably improved. And I can say I'm really happy with what I can do for veterans now compared to 2 or 3 years ago. But that being said, that doesn't cover everybody. It doesn't cover our widows, and there are some issues coming up.
Right, and you spoke about funeral costs. We can't anticipate people passing away. So I'm sort of observing that for my colleagues here on the board, that this is sort of 2 years in a row. I don't doubt the need for these reserve fund transfers, but I think it may be something we want to monitor in future fiscal years and be mindful of.
Okay. Any other?
I'll also note that I know we did increase the budget this year.
Yep.
So I'm optimistic that we may not find ourselves in this situation going forward, but a trend that we should monitor.
I appreciate that.
I just wonder, while we have Mr. McGordy here, if he can give us a little, like, if people want to come, when exactly does the parade start? And, when's the speeches in front of Town Hall and
Selectman Gilly, thank you so much for asking that question. Monday's going to be a really terrific day. I'd invite everybody to come down as early as 8 o'clock if they like to. I'll have coffee and donuts at the Veterans Post, which is on the corner of Cypress and Washington Street. It's newly refurbished. I'd like everybody to see it anyway. At 8:30, on time, I hope, we're going to take a procession to the cemeteries. We have a bus for everyone, so it's not an issue. We'll get to the Walnut Hill Cemetery, which is beautiful. We're going to do our first ceremony at the Grand Army of the Republic Monument, because this began with the Civil War. Reverend Johnson will speak, and he's an amazing historian. I'm wondering how old he is, because I think he speaks as if he was there. It really is an education.
I've heard him speak on past occasions, and he's not quite that old, but...
No, I don't think he is, but I still think he thinks he was there, because you can understand, he looks at it, and it's like seeing through his eyes. After we do that, we're going to go to the Colonial Cemetery on Walnut Street, and we're going to do a ceremony with the DAR. We're also going to honor a Vietnam veteran there through the DAR. We're going to honor Sergeant Taylor, who's the NCO sergeant for the Brighton ROTC that comes down and helps us. He did 20 years in the service, including 2 tours in Vietnam, and then he left the service and spent the last 20-plus years with those kids, and he's been a father figure to more than a few, and has basically raised 2 generations. He's given tremendous amount to the community. We're going to honor him. Then we're going to come back to the post, hopefully take a little break, form up for anybody that would like to participate in the parade. You don't have to be a veteran. We're happy to have everybody come along at about 10:45, and we'll start the procession, and we should be arriving at the War Monument in front of Town Hall at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock, we're going to conduct our ceremonies. Our guest speaker this year is Arthur Sager. He's one of my young veterans. Very interesting story. He is from Uganda. He joined the American Army, went to Afghanistan, served this country, came back, became an American citizen. He's now going to college to be an engineer. He is the American dream, and he's a wonderful man. I really like you to all meet him. We're also going to honor George Sala with the Arthur Hurley Award. George is a World War II veteran. He's 91, though he looks like he's about 61. He was a Brookline firefighter. He was a past commander at a VFW post. He's a member of our VFW post, and he, even though he's 91, he runs a scholarship for veterans' children. He just does an amazing job. After the ceremonies are done, we're going to have a nice collation back at the newly renovated Veterans Post. It's a great time. About a week after that, on the 8th, we're going to do another flag raising. This one is really neat, too. It's Commander Melvin Lederman. His family was from Brookline. He served in the Second World War. His brother is a Korean War veteran who still lives in town, Martin. Commander Lederman became a physician. During the Vietnam War, he went into the Navy as I believe a full commander. He was serving as a surgeon on one of the hospital ships. When not on surgical rotation, he would volunteer to fly out with the medical rescue, so there'd be a doctor on the scene. One of his missions, he was nominated for the Silver Star. He currently has 2 Purple Hearts. On one mission, his helicopter was shot down with everyone killed aboard. Originally it was ruled as a mechanical failure, which unfortunately doesn't get you a Purple Heart. Then they found that it was brought down by enemy fire, hostile fire. The Marine personnel were awarded Purple Hearts, but the Navy personnel were omitted. So we're working with Congressman Kennedy's office, both to get him the 3rd Purple Heart Award that he deserves, the Oak Leaf Cluster, and if he earned the Silver Star, the fact that he passed before the medal was processed shouldn't preclude his honor. We're trying to get that back for him also. But we're going to raise the flag for him on the 8th and honor him then. Everybody's invited to that also.
Sounds good. Okay, so now the more mundane vote. So I'm going to move approval and transmission to the advisory committee, the request for a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $25,000 for veterans benefits. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, snow. All kinds of moving money around to pay for the past winter. Commissioner?
Thank you. As I promised you, I'm back, and we're back to finally reconcile the deficit that we incurred since we revoked Chapter 44, Section 31D back in February of this year. I'm not going to remind everybody as to what happened between the end of January and the beginning of March. I'm sure you all remember. But I will tell you that initially we were running about a $3.5 million deficit in snow and ice control. We were able to reduce that deficit to $3,233,378, or about $250,000 by liquidating purchase orders that had been previously encumbered. Once the bills were paid, we were able to liquidate many of those. So the $3.2 million is the actual deficit going forward. I will just detail quickly to you what makes up that deficit. Overtime, Department of Public Works overtime is about $780,000. Contractual services, $1.6 million. Snow and ice supplies, which is basically sand and salt, motor equipment supplies and parts, is about $717,000. And property damage is about $121,000. Property damage is mostly public property damage, benches, street furniture, benches, signposts, parking meter posts, things of that nature that were damaged by the plows. That brings a total of about $3.2 million. We do have 4 potential funding sources to pay this deficit in this fiscal year. The The first is we were able to find $340,000 in surplus funds within the Department of Public Works. $240,000 of that was surplus funds in wages and salaries in the Department of Public Works, primarily the Engineering Division and the Highway and Sanitation Division, and an additional $100,000 in surplus salaries in the Parks and Open Space Division. These surpluses are generally due to vacancies that occur during the year that remain unfilled. It allows us to build up a surplus in the salaries account. Application of these funds by internal transfer, and I have included for your approval a request for appropriation transfer. That comes to $340,000. By approving the application for appropriation transfer request and the potential use of $393,378 in projected FEMA reimbursement funds, which will be forthcoming as a reimbursement from the January 26th to 28th blizzard. This will leave a deficit balance of $2.5 million. We have two funding sources available to reconcile the $2.5 million. The first is a request for reserve fund transfer, which I ask your approval and also your approval to transmit to the advisory committee this evening. Request for $1.4 million, which is the reserve fund transfer. And that's detailed on the second sheet that I've included in your package for your authorization. The department also requests your support of Article 7 of the 2015 annual town meeting, which will allow $1.1 million of the surplus declared by the Board of Assessors to be available for appropriation to the snow and ice control budget, which is the exact content of what Article 7 is, which is before the advisory committee also tonight. So having said all of that, I know it sounds a little bit complicated, but I think it's a good story that we were able to find the funding sources to cover this deficit in this fiscal year without carrying it forward, and I ask your approval of all of these requests.
So, other communities have had to carry forward the terrible snow and ice experience, so we have the ability to pay for it this fiscal year, which is, I think, a good thing, and it's testament to our sound fiscal policies that we have the ability to cover events like this past winter. Any questions, comments?
I have one question. The surplus salaries, if they were not used for snow removal, would they have gone back to the general fund?
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay. Selectman Daley?
Yeah, okay, so I have a question. Okay, if the reserve fund transfers as 1.4 million, according to my calculations, that leaves 461,000 in the reserve fund?
436, because 25,000.
Oh, just one, okay, yeah, okay. So, and what are we anticipating?
Well, the only, I think, possibly energy-related expenses, but we think the balance will be sufficient to cover that. I'm not aware of any others. I don't see Melissa, must be down with the advisory committee, but we've discussed it, and there's possibility that there may be some energy shortages, but it won't be sufficient, and I mean significant, and wouldn't exceed that balance in the reserve fund.
Okay, and then the 1.1 million that's left, you're proposing to pay for out of the tax overlay account?
The reserves that from prior years that the assessors have certified are available, and we have that proposed for an appropriation under Article 7 of the annual town meeting.
Okay, what's the total amount they have available? Is this the total?
Yes.
So we're okay. And what does that, I mean, ordinarily, the tax overlay would go back into free cash?
No,
No, what
not unless
happens
they
to-
certified it. What we have been doing typically is using it from time to time when there's a sort of major capital or one-time need that isn't available. so usually for capital purposes. I think the last time we used overlay reserve was to fund,
It was a...
it was a capital
school
project. A school. Yeah, I
Maybe
think we
devotion.
funded the design for devotion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we typically, we will only use it for one-time purposes. It never goes back to the free cash.
Okay, this better be a one-time thing, Andy, this excessive snow.
What's in the
And
general-
now we have a new snow beast.
That's right. I don't think you were here earlier. I was mentioning I had a good time up at DPW Day today, and I took a picture, which I showed my fellow board members of the snow.
It's a good thing I wasn't there. I was going to take you for a ride in it.
That would have been excellent. But I was saying, it's my understanding you would like another one, right?
Well, there's a lot of things we would like.
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, I think we have to, we don't have to do it tonight, but at some point, sit down and think about this, because given many of these costs are for overtime, and when you have to deploy full crews out there to clear out areas so people can park along Beacon Street or parking lots or whatever, that's some of the costs that's included in this amount. And if we can do that more cheaply and easily, it might behoove us to do so.
One of the major costs that contributed to the deficit is about 1.6 million in contractual services costs. Though that's the money that we use to hire contractors in their trucks and loaders. I will tell you that we have, played with these numbers extensively, and when we do a snow removal operation conventionally using trucks and front-end loaders, it runs about $10,000 an hour. If we do an 8-hour shift for 2 days, that's $160,000. The use of this new machine will do in one night what generally takes us 4 nights to do under conventional snow removal operations. So basically, the use of this machine in one night saves $160,000, which is just about the exact cost of the machine. So if you do the math, it's
Payback of
you're talking
one
about
night.
a 2-day
Yeah.
payback.
2 days.
So
That's
Okay.
pretty amazing.
I rest our case.
Okay, hearing no more comments and thoughts, we've talked a lot about snow removal over the past few months, so I'll just move transmission to the advisory committee for reserve fund transfer of $1.4 million for snow and ice. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
And just to be clear, you meant to move approval in transmission.
Correct.
We don't want to just send it down there, we want to
We want
say
to...
yes as well.
Yes. Okay, and I'll also move the various intra-department transfers, so this is a long motion. So I will move approving the following transfers within the Public Works Department's appropriation. From engineering services, $50,000, to snow and ice overtime, $50,000. From roadway maintenance salaries, $170,000, to snow and ice overtime, $170,000. From motor equipment salaries, $20,000, to snow and ice, $20,000. From public ground salaries, $50,000, to snow and ice overtime, $50,000. From school ground salaries, $50,000, to snow and ice, $50,000. Is that clear? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay, we now move on to item 10. We're only 20 minutes behind, so I apologize for being late.
You don't have to apologize
20
for
minutes
just
is
20
good.
minutes.
Yeah, well, it's still
Basically on
apologize.
time.
Yeah.
So this is the question of approving the application of Trader Joe's East, Inc., DBA Trader Joe's, holder of an all-kinds liquor license as a packaged goods store at 1317 Beacon Street for a change in directors and managers. Sir, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what's going on?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Attorney Michael Brangwin with the Law Office of D. Nicola, Seligson, and Upton, here on behalf of Trader Joe's East Inc., doing business as Trader Joe's, holder of a Section 15 all-alcohol package store license. We're here seeking approval of two applications, the first being a change of manager and the second being a change of officers and directors. Would you like to go through them separately?
Sure.
Why don't I begin with the change of manager? Here with me today is Micah O'Malley, who is replacing Charles, or who have proposed to replace Charles Arnold as the manager of the Trader Joe's location in Brookline. He's worked for Trader Joe's for approximately 18 years and has extensive experience as the manager on a package store license in California, New Hampshire, various other states, and he's familiar with the responsibilities and requirements of a package holder licensee, and he's submitted letters of recommendation or letters attesting to his character, and he's happy to answer any questions that the board may have concerning his qualifications. So with that, maybe I'll turn it over to any questions for Mr. O'Malley.
Yeah, I note that in the police department memo, it states that a meeting will be held prior to the selectmen's meeting to discuss the town's regulations. Was that meeting held?
Yes.
Yes, I met with Lieutenant Hayes.
Okay, and he went over the specific Brookline requirements,
In detail.
such as?
I am to have a in-store policy, as well as all employees in the store will have signed copies of our in-store policy. All employees of the store will also go through one of two alcohol training classes. I've been doing, I attended one with Mr. Staples, who does his classes right at the police department across the street. We'll have two copies for each employee, one with our in-store policy, one with the certification of the training. And I will have an alternate manager on duty at all times if I'm not in the building. Also quarried with the town of Brookline and fingerprinted with the town of Brookline. And we will not be selling to minors.
Right. And we take that very seriously. We do stings. Hopefully, we won't see you again under those circumstances, because those are
I
never
agree.
nice. Any questions on the change of manager?
Nancy,
Yeah, I just had a I didn't see your actual tips certification thing in here, but you're saying you have it, and I note the police department and their report says you do have it.
That is correct.
Okay. On the selling to minors, so what's going to be your policy when people come up to the cashier? Do you ask everybody for ID? Do you ask people who look younger than a certain age for ID?
35 is the standard, 35. Anyone that would look 35 or younger is ID'd, and we ask not only that they show us the proper identification, but for them to also verify their age verbally.
Okay. And what about, I understand a lot of the kids in high school have fake IDs that they get from like out of state.
Yeah, we have, at this point in time, we actually have two office areas, one on each side of the store. You guys are familiar with the store, I'm sure. You
Yeah.
shop there all the time.
I actually do. Yeah.
Each office is outfitted with identification book for our records, and if there's any question about the identification at all, we have a reference, book. But in addition to that, Mr. Staples goes in great detail about fake identification and the quality of fake identification at this point in time and the things to look for.
Okay, great.
Any other questions on the change of manager? How about the change of directors?
So the change of directors is a little bit more straightforward. Patricia Island is proposed to replace Brant Sharrock as secretary and director of the licensee. And you'll see there's a breakdown in our application of the ownership, which basically it's if you follow the chain up, they are the officers and directors of the actual licensee, Trader Joe's East, Inc., and we've disclosed previously the other officers and directors, and it goes up actually all the way to a German trust, I think you see in the application, which is a bit of an odd situation, but I'm no expert in the German trust law, but as I understand, they have some type of beneficiaries that aren't actually owners, so, but I'm happy to answer any questions about the change. Again, that's at the corporate level, and that will have no effect on the Brookline location.
Any questions from the board? While this isn't a public hearing, I invite members of the public who wish to speak on either of these changes. I see none, so I will move approval of the application of Trader Joe's East, doing business as Trader Joe's, holder of an all-kinds liquor license as a packaged goods store at 1317 Beacon Street for a change in directors and manager as follows. Secretary Director from Brant Sharrock to Patricia Island. Change of manager from Charles Arnold to Micah O'Malley. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Selectman Franco, sorry.
Aye.
Selectman Heller? Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. For reals, and the chair votes aye. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
One of these days, I'll learn your names.
Well, we look so alike.
It's the haircut.
Right.
Okay, the next item is an increase in seating. The question of approving the application of Lee's Burger Brookline, DBA Lee's Burger, Jimmy Wong, owner, holder of a common victualler license at 1331 Beacon Street for an increase in seating from 20 to 35. Mr. Baraneski.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Wyszynski, members of the board. For the record, Adam Barnowski. I'm with the law office of Robert Allen, 300 Washington Street in Brookline Village. Here with me is Chung Chung, who's one of the owners of Lee's Burgers on Beacon Street in Coolidge Corner. We're here on an increase of seating from 20 to 35 seats. In conjunction with this request, we are in the process of going through zoning approvals. We had this matter approved by the planning board and also by the ZBA. I know that a decision was signed off on I believe it was on May 8th, so we're waiting the appeal period to expire on the 29th, and at that point in time, we'll be allowed to increase the seats subject to the board's approval. There's going to be no renovations or construction relative to this request. It's just going to be a reconfiguration of the seats.
Any questions from the board?
I'd just like to make a comment.
Yep.
I eat a lot of your hamburgers, and I always ask for whole wheat bread, and I get bread as opposed to buns. You can go next door to the previous store, or the owners of Trader Joe's, and get whole wheat buns. Just, a little personal comment.
Correct.
Okay. Otherwise, your hamburgers are great.
This isn't a public hearing, but if anyone wishes to speak for or against this application, now's your opportunity. And I don't see any takers, so I will move approval of the application of Lee's Burger Brookline, DBA Lee's Burger, Jimmy Wong owner, holder of a common victualler license at 1331 for an increase in seating from 20 to 35. Do we need to throw any conditions on here? I don't think so. So all those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And moving on, the question of approving the application of Piapong Wangla, owner, doing business as Giggling Rice, holder of a common victualler license and entertainment license at 1009A Beacon Street for outside seating to include 6 tables for a total of 12 seats. Welcome. Did I say your name right? Wow. So I'll note that our building department noted that you're proposing the sidewalk, there's 20 feet of sidewalk on private property, and if you're within the private property, you don't need an occupancy permit, but if you go over into the public sidewalk, you will need an occupancy permit. So
Public Works Department.
you'd go to the Public Works Department for that. So why don't you tell us what's going on?
I'm not sure if it's at the private area or public area.
Yeah.
The sidewalk is 20 feet private, and then the rest of it's public,
Oh,
split.
oh, okay.
So if you stay within the 20 feet,
Yep.
you're good.
So,
And we do require you to put a rope or something to mark off the area. There's supposed to be some
separation.
divider,
That's for-
separation.
So on 12.5 of our packet, there's a sort of diagram, and one of the questions I had, and thank you for bringing it up, Mr. Chairman, is there's no demarcation of the number of feet that this proposed seating is going to extend from the building. So it's an open question, I think.
Except in the chart, it says depth 19 and a quarter. Well,
I think that's of the seat itself, rather than the seating area.
19 and a quarter inches, yeah.
Right, it's 49 centimeters.
So, yes. So it's something you're going to need to be aware of, and I'm sure when this is inspected, if you're over the 25 feet.
20 feet.
20 feet.
Okay. I keep 4 feet from the walkway already.
And actually, you'd probably want to talk to our Department of Public Works to see exactly how you measure the 20 feet, where it goes from and to.
I think it's from your building outward.
Yeah.
You have 20 feet, and then, I'm not sure what the total width is there. So I don't know whether it's 24 and you've got the correct measurement or not. You should remeasure it.
I would move to make approval of the outdoor seating contingent upon the submission of a chart, a diagram that shows the dimensions of the seating area.
He's saying he wants you to measure
Yeah.
and send to our Brenda Costello in the Selectmen's office
Okay.
a new chart in which you show whether you're coming out more than 20 feet or not,
No.
okay?
Yeah, the chart is here, it's just missing that dimension.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, what your question again?
I'm going to move Selectman Franco's condition that before a license is issued for this, that you need to submit a chart that has that dimension showing how far from the building you're going to be. And you have the chart, it's just that chart is missing that dimension.
Oh,
So that should be very
You can
easy.
submit that to the Selectmen's office anytime.
okay, yeah, sure.
Well, we're not so much interested in the 4 feet here, but what is this?
This is my building right here.
Yes, but
Right.
how many feet is it from
How many
from the
feet?
building?
From the walkway, right?
Right, it just says feet.
Yeah.
Doesn't say 15 feet or 20 feet.
20 feet. Oh, I write out already. Maybe it's when I copy for you.
Oh,
It's-
may have got
it's
cut off in the
Cut
top.
off.
Oh.
Yeah. It's 20
Okay,
feet.
so so you may have already
Okay.
complied with that
measured
condition.
already. Yeah.
Okay,
It's 20 feet.
And
oh, okay,
I'll look at the original.
Brenda will
yeah,
will
okay.
confirm that.
Okay, so
Original one right here is.
And
Okay.
we'll also note
that was our confusion,
Oh,
because
yeah,
it had
sorry.
been cut off and we didn't see
I
that,
didn't see
so,
what you.
okay.
And then the Health Department's standard conditions are the outdoor seating should be posted no smoking, dogs aren't allowed in the seating area unless you get a waiver from the Health Department. you need to provide covered
prepare everything already.
rubbish, okay.
And you can put, I mean, you can just put like a rope around, or you can put planters or something there. You're supposed to put some little barrier between this area and to show
That would be
that.
only for liquor license
Is that right?
establishments, yeah. I'll verify that.
Okay.
And I'll let you know if there is any further requirements.
Okay, so
I know
maybe
for
it's-
liquor
maybe it's
license,
no
we
problem.
definitely require such a
Yeah.
barrier.
Any other comments, questions from the board?
Well, I see town meeting member, Mr. Franco, in the back of the room. I don't know if he wants to speak on behalf of the abutters or the town meeting members.
Right, so I'll invite members of the public who wish to speak on this, and I am seeing some head shaking no. So therefore, I'll move the question of approving the application of Piapong Wangla, owner, DBA Giggling Rice, holder of a common victual license and entertainment license at 1009A Beacon Street for outside seating to include 6 tables with a total of 12 seats. All those in favor, please say...
Did you want to put the
Oh, with the
condition on?
condition that,
No, but I think he had met the condition, because his original said,
we'll verify whether you've submitted the drawing that shows the number of feet into the sidewalk, and if not...
do you have the original there?
Yeah,
Can-
already. It's not like original, but like the one that I copied that have the number. Right.
Okay, so he has submitted it.
Yes, he has
says
submitted
20,
it.
okay.
It says 20 feet.
Says 20
And
feet.
he's only going to go, not that full distance.
Okay.
Can I have a copy of this?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So, everyone understand the motion?
Yes,
So there's no condition now.
No condition.
okay.
All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along. Item 13, outside seating, increase in the hours for Starbucks. Question of approving the application of Starbucks Corporation, DBA Starbucks Coffee 824, Daniel Brennan, licensed expediter, holder of a common victualler license at 473 Harvard Street for outside seating for 4 tables with a total of 8 seats and an increase in hours as follows: from Monday to Saturday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., Sunday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., to Monday to Thursday, 5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So you're asking for Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays going an extra hour into the evening, then Mondays through Thursday opening up a half hour earlier in the morning.
Correct.
Sir, introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, my name's Dan Brennan, I handle permits and licenses for Starbucks. Here for the store at 473 Harvard Street. It was found that we had some chairs actually out there. We were renovating the store, and I handled their renewals, and I noticed it wasn't on the common vic license, so that's kind of how this all got brought up. The renovation brought it to our attention that it wasn't on our common victualler license. So they are planning on putting furniture out there with umbrellas and chairs. It is on private property. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area, but it's set off from the street near the parking area next to Laundromat, I believe.
This is on the side of the building, not in the front.
Exactly. Right. And we did speak with the health department about having a no smoking sign and no pets or dogs. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The store's under renovation right now. It'll probably be done in about a week.
Okay, so you already noted that this is on private property, so an occupancy permit won't be required. Any comments, questions?
I'm looking at the diagram, and it looks like if you're sort of reading from left to right, so you have sort of the engineering stamp on the right side of the page. There's what appears to be a handicap parking space, and I'm wondering where the curb cut is. If somebody who's in a wheelchair perhaps has to go out to the public sidewalk to enter the store, or if there's a curb cut there that these proposed seats would sort of obstruct your passage down the sidewalk, the private sidewalk, into the front door. Is that clear, or did I confuse everybody?
No?
No, I see your concern. I'm not sure on if that's the curb cut there or not. That's a valid point.
Should we just put a condition on here that there be adequate room for passage of wheelchairs?
Well,
If that is,
If that is,
Yeah, I'll have to
because just that's a valid concern. We don't have an answer tonight. I don't want to have to, I don't want them to have to come back.
we can condition it, or we can hold it over.
I think we should just say, provided that it doesn't interfere with handicapped accessibility of the building.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
That works.
Okay. This isn't a public hearing, but if anyone wishes to speak on this, now is your opportunity. I don't see anyone. Any other comments from the board? So I'm going to move the motion with the condition that, how did you put it, Selectman Daley?
Provided that this outside seating does not interfere with handicapped accessibility of the building.
Okay. So I'll move the approval of the application of Starbucks Corporation, DBA Starbucks Coffee, 824 Daniel Brennan, license expediter, holder of a common victual license at 473 Harvard Street for outside seating for 4 tables with a total of 8 seats, with the, provided that...
Provided that the outside seating does not interfere with handicapped accessibility of the building.
And for an increase in hours as follows, from Monday to Saturday, 6 to 9 p.m., Sunday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., to Monday to Thursday, 5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. The question of approving the application of Washington Square Hospitality LLC, doing business as Sunny Boy, Andrew Carton, manager, holder of an all kinds alcoholic beverages license as common victualler and entertainment at 632 Beacon Street for outside seating with 3 tables and a total of 6 seats. Mr. Gladstone.
Yes, thank you. Scott Gladstone for Washington Square Hospitality. With me is Bill Bachbina, the other partner for this endeavor. Basically, at Brenda's suggestion, we just took out a diagram from the last time this restaurant had outdoor seating, when it was Richie's, using the exact same dimensions, exact same seating. I believe in the packet is a picture of what that's going to look like, because they set it up and they took a picture and then they put it back away. And we're just looking for this, seasonal accommodation. Also, before we forget, and I have an inquiry of Mr. Kleckner, there was an issue about the CV license issuing for the wrong times, and I was wondering, is this something that needs to be corrected as a matter of a vote?
it was done previously.
It's already done, so we don't have to worry about
It
that.
was done earlier this evening.
Okay, great. Oh, all right, fabulous. Then we're just talking about the seating.
I'll note that the police department made a note about the condition of the sidewalk on...
So, yes.
What's going on there? Is that the public sidewalk?
Well, the whole thing's a public sidewalk, so I'm let me show you, may I show you a couple of pictures? I'm not sure if these made into your packet, because we did email them.
Yeah,
They're not very...
They're not very
Oh, all
clear.
right, so here, I'm afraid Selectman Heller's not going to be able to see it unless she's on Skype. But we have, this is pretty good. So here's this is the condition of the sidewalk in front of the restaurant. If you see, there's a little bit of brickwork missing, but that's well outside of the intended seating area, and it's actually even pretty much past where the restaurant's going to be. There's and in addition, you can keep that, and you can keep this as well, so you can see just how much sidewalk there is between the tables and where that brick area is. In addition to that, because Mr. Bean has been dealing with the DPW, in part because of the occupancy permit that's going to be required, this has been expedited to the top of the list for sidewalk repairs. And we just read, there were two relevant things in the tab this week. One was a fabulous discussion of this restaurant being opened and all the anticipation surrounding it. And the other is an article about commercial sidewalks being repaired by the town. And so, in fact, the intention was by DPW that this was even going to be done by today. We're not sure if that happened, but if not, it's going to happen before the opening.
Okay.
I've got to say, I think it's wise that you gave up, or you're not going to use the name Schmaltz anymore, are you?
I have no comment on that. I think everybody likes Sunny Boy very much.
Yeah, I will just say that, speaking for myself, I don't do a very good job of it, but at least I try to avoid eating a lot of fat.
A lot of chicken fat.
Yeah.
I'll note, that the tables and chairs will be on town property, so you'll need an occupancy permit.
Right.
Any other comments from the board? This isn't a public hearing, but I'll invite anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this, pro or con.
Okay, so these guys do have the alcoholic beverages license.
Right. But
So that means they need the rope barrier? I think they do.
It will work with DPW on what that looks like. They'll most likely use a decorative chain.
Okay.
So, seeing no more discussion, I will move the approval of the application of Washington Square Hospitality LLC DBA Sunny Boy Andrew Carton, manager, holder of an all-kinds alcoholic beverages license as a common victualler and entertainment at 1632 Beacon Street for outside seating with 3 tables and a total of 6 seats. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. And the chair will vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you. And so just to be sure, we have a 7 a.m. CV license as of now, right?
Correct.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, folks.
Okay. Moving on to item 15. The question of approving the application of Julian's Cheesecake, DBA Finagle Bagel. Now, how did Julian, well, I won't ask. Laura Trust and Alan Lichman, okay, owners for a food vendor license at 1244 Boylston Street. Mr. Barnoski.
Thanks again. Again, Adam Barnoski, here on behalf of Finagle Bagel. With me is Alan Lichman, who's the co-owner and founder of Finagle Bagel. We're here on a request for a food vendor license for the first floor of the office space over at 1244 Boylston Street. As we provided a press release from the company, but essentially Finagle Bagel is in the process of transitioning their business from the current location at 1240 Boylston Street, which closed on May 8th, to a new building that will be constructed on that premises, hopefully to be complete sometime around the spring of 2016, possibly summer. And they're looking to have this food vendor's permit to operate a kiosk at the time, between now And when they open, they can keep a presence in the town, they can service a lot of the folks in the office building there. They are going to have bagels, they're going to have coffee, a limited breakfast and lunch sandwich menu there, looking to operate from 7 in the morning till 3 p.m. There wasn't one clarification we wanted to make. We wanted to, if the board would vote on it, request this permit authorize use 7 days a week. I believe the application specified Tuesday through Saturday, which I think was an oversight at the time of submission. So we want to have the opportunity to operate 7 days a week. Most likely it'll be standard business Monday through Friday, but would like the ability to operate on Saturdays and Sundays when they deem it appropriate.
Sunday and Monday, you mean?
Sunday and Monday, right, based on that application, yes.
Can we do that?
I think so.
Okay.
I will note that our former colleague, Mr. Goldstein, who I believe is a regular at this Finagle a Bagel, will be happy that it's going to be opened in even a abbreviated format. You're actually moving to his building, so it'll be even better for him.
That is my understanding.
And you're looking for the same hours on Mondays, Sundays and Mondays, 7 to 3?
That is correct.
Okay. This isn't a public hearing, but I'll open it up to public comment. Any comment from the board?
No, as I say, I think it's essential out there. It's very popular.
Selectman Heller, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. I know a number of people were distressed to hear that Finagle wouldn't be operating for the next year while the building is being renovated, but now that you're moving to a smaller operation, but at least the bagel will be there and people are thrilled about it. So I know it's going to make a lot of people happy that if we approve this.
Okay. So I will move the question of approving the application of Julian's Cheesecake, Inc., doing business as Finagle a Bagel, Laura Trust and Alan Lichman, owners for food vendor license, as amended to include Sunday and Monday openings from 7 to 3 p.m. all those days, all the days of the week. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. And chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, and it's the question of approving the application of the Barbecue Lamb Brothers LLC, doing business as Wow Barbecue, Steve Liu, owner, manager for a common victualler license at 320 Washington Street. And you're also applying for an entertainment license to include radio, tape, music, TV, instrumental music, and a vocalist. And you're applying for a all kinds alcoholic beverages license, and appointing as a manager Steve Liu, and an alternate manager Yi Peng.
Yes, my name is Steve Liu. Hey, everyone. This is my alternate manager, Yi Peng. So we're applying for the 7-day all liquor license, common victual license. I have here with me the abutter certified letter return receipts. Should I submit them? Okay. So I sent out 76 letters and I received 40-something back, just to let you know.
So tell us about your operation.
Sure.
Hoping to do.
Sure. So we started 2 years ago as a food truck in the city of Boston, and last May we actually opened our first restaurant in the city of Malden, and we also hold a full liquor license over there. We have been in operation for 1 full year up to today. And so this is the second restaurant basically under the same theme, also DBA as Wow Barbecue, selling Chinese barbecue food, basically meat on skewer. We're going to have a full bar over here, and I think it'd be a nice addition to the town of Brookline.
I have a question for Mr. Kleckner, because I thought we were out of, but somewhere I saw, I don't know where it is now, but I saw in here that there was a sheet saying, no, we did still have some full liquor licenses
Correct.
available.
Right. They get, every now and then, one will get turned in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has the Met has been empty for a while. Has that one been turned in?
I believe so.
So I note that you've applied to open till 2 a.m.
Yes.
on Saturdays and Sundays. Oh, actually... yes.
7 days.
7
days a
days.
week.
Yeah. I thought that was the latest allowed hour.
Yeah,
State law is.
yeah, under state law it is. Some of your neighbors have, in the immediate area, have hours not till 2 a.m. It's a quiet neighborhood. It's a commercial area, but, it's kind of quiet. When do you plan on opening till?
We are, right now, we have a 1 o'clock license in Malden. That's because the town only allows us to open until 1. Our food is really considered as a late night snack. A lot of people really come here, between 11 and 12. Right now, for our current restaurant, we see customers coming in around that time. And because a lot of businesses aren't open at that hour, I think it would be a nice addition. And our customer base usually, just for example, our current customer base do not really consume a lot of alcohol. I mean, our alcohol sales is under 10% for our current restaurant. We have a full liquor license over there. And so we think being able to open until 2 a.m., we can really take advantage of people who, all the schools around this area, BC, BU, all the students really coming out late at night. And we believe even though it's a quiet neighborhood, it's a commercial area. I mean, the building that we reside in is all commercial offices, so I don't think we'll be disturbing anyone by opening until 2 a.m.
This board historically has handed out 2 a.m. licenses very rarely.
Okay.
And I, for one, am not prepared to support a 2 a.m. license, so
Okay.
I will make a motion to scale the hours back a little bit, but...
If I may, I guess I'd be comfortable with that, given what you described as your sort of business plan, which doesn't seem to really rely on alcoholic sales
Right.
late in the evening. So would they be able to open to 2 p.m., 2 a.m., but not sell liquor, or how does that work?
Yeah,
You can do the CV license until a different time than the alcohol license.
Yeah.
I think that would create some problems for the way they operate their business, but I guess technically you're right, they could do that.
I guess it's the type of business I think I'd like to encourage. I mean, it sounds like something that would be a positive addition to the town.
Were you
But-
planning on doing, having cars take food, deliver food to people?
We are looking to partner with there are some applications. Basically, we'll partner with outside delivery companies. We won't have our own delivery drivers, but, they can send us an email, give us an order, and then they'll come and pick it up.
Because that has been one of the issues. I think in the area you're talking about, there are residential above some of the commercial. It's commercial on the ground floor, but I think many of them have some residential up above.
It's the owner of the building, he owns, our landlord, he owns the entire building, and he said the entire building is commercial. It's 320, is right next to the police station, it's the 4-story building right over there, and we do have some private parking for ourselves, so if a delivery vehicle were to pull in, they can actually pull directly into the building. They won't be in
Okay.
like the public way.
Because that was my concern, is
Yeah.
sometimes the doors banging and whatever disturb people in the area.
No, they wouldn't be.
Late at night.
Have you met with the police department?
I have, yes.
Okay, and they went through the
The same
Brookline
training,
specific rules?
yeah, I saw the Trader Joe guy over there. He was late, but I saw him over there, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so what are some of the things they told you about?
Sure,
About the
so-
Brookline specific rules?
So both of us have a on-premise tips certification. We need to have a alternate manager on site at least 40 hours a week, and also the manager, we need to have one person that holds a crowd management certificate, which I just passed for every, I believe, 250 people, but we only have 76 seats, and our occupancy is under that, so only one person needs to have that. And also, we need to keep a activity log in case of any suspicious activity, for example, a drunk customer or someone who is causing trouble, where we, suspicious of, over drinking, we need to make sure we write it down. And then we also have to keep our fire facilities checked before we open every day.
Okay. We take alcohol enforcement very seriously here. We do stings, and I hope we won't see you here for violations of those rules.
Yes, I would.
Those are not very pleasant.
Yeah, those are very serious issues, and we take them very seriously. We haven't had an issue for the past year that we operating in Malden, so.
Right, okay.
I'm going to just, doesn't affect your license at all, but I'm going to just give you a piece of unsolicited advice. Your
Sure.
menu, I think you have to,
This is our current menu, so this restaurant in Brookline is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more upscale. That one is very traditional Chinese. I know it's
That's what I was thinking.
confusing to a lot of people who's never had our food,
Yeah.
but the one that we have here is going to have pictures. We may even have just iPads, so you just kind of like, I like this food, I'm just click on this photo and then you order it. So it's going to be a lot simpler, and then we're adding some non-Chinese barbecue items, like you're going to see like some American barbecue, you're going to see Brazilian, you're going to see maybe like Mediterranean barbecue. So it's going to be a little bit more upscale and much easier for someone who's never been there to order. So
yeah, because I don't know, I think many of us know what large lamb means.
it's a larger skewer of lamb. So we have two types, a smaller skewer and a large skewer.
I was
Yeah.
kind of picturing like a side of lamb or something like that.
No, yeah, it is a little confusing. I will admit that. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the diversity of barbecue types that you're offering. that
Oh,
you're
thanks.
offer.
I think I'm looking forward to the pickled pepper frog.
That's a crowd favorite. Yeah.
And then what kind of, you're applying for some entertainment?
Yeah.
Beyond the normal background music?
Yeah,
tell
so
us about that.
we're thinking about doing something different, just providing, maybe on one night we'll have some like, a Chinese stand-up kind of comedy night. Sometimes we'll have maybe like a guitar soloist playing some kind of instrument, but we'll be kind of quiet and just limited to one instrument at a time. So it's not going to be any kind of like crazy DJing, dancing, disco party, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'll note the fire department is going to require an inspection after a certificate of occupancy has been issued.
Yep.
And then there are the standard health department conditions. This is a public hearing. Any members of the public wish to speak on this? For or against? Ms. Frawley?
Thank you. Really a question. I didn't quite hear about whether we have the extra liquor licenses.
We do.
We do. How many do we have for full liquor license?
It was, I was looking,
Yeah, I couldn't
I had
find it.
asked Mr. Kleckner to compile that.
I think it might have been in the information.
I saw it, was in here somewhere, but I
It's in
can't
the
find
It
it.
was in the information packet.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was somewhere in the neighborhood of 5, did I seem to recall?
I think she was asking about the all alcohol.
We will get that for you.
And how many in that general area, which is directly, essentially across the street from here?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that,
8 full liquor license on 2 sides of essentially 1 block?
I don't know if they're all, So, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all kinds, and 1 is wine malt.
On
And
two
family
sides of one
restaurant.
block in that
And
Washington.
that goes to Harvard, goes
Goes
to...
around the corner into
Goes to
Harvard as well.
Pomodoro,
I see.
Orinoco,
Okay.
Matt Murphy's Smokehouse. So it's, you know, Brookline Village has grown into an area of restaurants.
Okay. So you believe you have 4 full liquor licenses available going forward?
Right, and after this one, there'll be 4 left over.
Okay. Thank you.
So our,
Could I also request that? Thank you. It was not in any of the press packets, this item, so it's difficult to be more specific other than what I'm listening to. Could I have this item mailed, the whole packet mailed to my home? In other words, in my packet, it went from 15 to 17, and in his packet, it did too, so 16 is missing. So it's difficult for a public hearing if we don't have the documents in front of us.
so you would like
I would like item 16 mailed. Thank you.
to,
Yeah. And maybe respectfully request going forward that we have those things better in the packets.
Right.
And it
I'm
happens that...
sure that was just an oversight there. I think it's,
Right,
usually
but-
they're pretty complete, aren't they?
Here and there are some issues. But also, it doesn't say on the agenda that it's a public hearing, which might have made a difference for some people in the area. Don't know. But on my blue thing, it doesn't say public hearing.
no, it does.
Where is it?
Item B, public hearing on the application of the Barbecue Lamb Brothers,
Where is that?
page 6, 16B.
Yeah. Mine just says exactly what the others had, 16, all kinds, common victular entertainment, question of approving the application. It doesn't...
Go to
B.
go to B underneath there.
Go to B.
Next page.
Go to B. There's A, B, and C. So there's the common victular license, the entertainment, and the manager.
So B says public hearing.
Right. That's,
But not A,
well, A isn't a public hearing, C isn't a public hearing,
Okay.
but B is. It's the
Okay.
alcohol piece that's the public
so it's the
hearing.
entertainment and the alcohol that's,
It's the alcohol. is-
just
is
the
public
alcohol.
hearing.
Okay.
But we'll take comment on any of,
No, I love lamb. Thank you.
okay. Mr. Harris, would you like to speak on this?
Thank you. Yes, I would. Super briefly, John Harris, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8, and I also haven't at various times in my life been a semi-professional musician, and the thing I like best about the idea here is occasionally having live music, and I do want to point out to even folks in the neighborhood that live music doesn't have to mean loud music. It can be as quiet as just people singing with an unamplified voice, that kind of thing. So I think there's not enough live music in Brookline anymore, and I'm delighted that there's an establishment that is interested in bringing it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I will, Mr. Boland.
Thank you. Craig Boland, Fuller Street. I just wanted to note for your record that the full set of the document is in the online packet, which is what I usually use. It's there. You might want to publicize the availability of that. In this day and age, we may not need all this paper.
Thank you, Mr. Boland. So I am going to move the
Wait,
the
we
hours.
settle, Selectman
hours.
Franco's question.
So I was going to move a noon to midnight, 7 days a week.
You know, I'm just going to say Village Smokehouse is 1 a.m. and Matt Murphy's is 2 a.m. It's,
Both of those establishments have been in town for a while. This is a new establishment. So I'm open to expanding the hours in the future, but
Well, what about 12:30? I mean,
Okay,
just
we-
give them a little bit of that late night
Can we have
crowd.
longer hours for the weekend? I mean, Friday and Saturday just be different than the rest of the week. I mean, Sunday through Thursday, if we do 12, that's fine with us. But I would expect the students want to have basically a longer hour for Friday and Saturday. And usually, people stay up till later over the weekend.
I'd be willing to go to 1 on so this would be Friday and Saturday. Selectman Heller, do you have?
I would agree with the lessening of the hours during the week. I think that there are residences in that neighborhood, and I would not want them to be disturbed, especially on the weeknights. Weekends, I think we could be a little more flexible, but I do think the weeknights, it's a good idea to cut it to 12 at midnight.
What would you be in favor of on a Friday and Saturday night, Selectman Heller? 1, 2?
I would.
I think I'll go with 1.
Because it's a new establishment, I would.
Friday, Saturday.
I guess I would start out at maybe 1 o'clock on the weekend, and perhaps with the understanding that they could come back if there are no issues or problems. They could come back in, say, 6 months for an extension to 2 a.m. I just want to make sure that we have the ability to take action if there's a problem.
I think I'd be in favor of doing the midnight, Monday through Thursday, Sunday through Thursday, I guess it is, right?
Yep.
And I'd go to 1 on Friday and Saturday, but I don't think, I think Selectman Franco brings up a good point. There's only one in the whole area, Matt Murphy's, that's been there a long time, that has that 2 a.m. one, so I would not suggest that they come back in 6 months to go to 2 a.m., but just stick with 1 a.m. on the weekends.
I mean, will we ever have an opportunity to come back and extend our hours if we have good records?
I'd give them opportunity to
Yeah,
come
okay.
back.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you can come back.
we can't prevent them from coming back.
Right, you can
We
come
can't
back
promise- We
anytime.
can't promise a vote to issue.
Right, I mean, what's
Yeah,
the
you
reason?
can come back, I'm just saying, I'm not probably going to be,
What's a reasonable time frame? Let's say, like, if we stay in good, terms for, let's say, a year, and then we come back this time next year, I mean, are we going to have a chance of being
yeah,
approved?
certainly you can ask, yeah.
And maybe you love our food.
Well, a lot of, I think a lot of our reaction is going to be the reaction of the neighborhood.
Okay.
Right, if there's
So-
no complaints and nobody minds.
I guess I support, the 1 o'clock on the weekends and 12 on the weekdays. One concern I have is that you're like a year and a half out of a food truck. And I'm sure the food truck was very popular and very successful. But the restaurant business is a very dangerous and risky business, not dangerous, but risky business. I just, my concern is that restricting the hours could undermine your business plan, and what you're telling me is that it won't if we restrict it just on the weekdays.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, basically, I'm hoping to get a 2 o'clock, but if a 2 o'clock is not a possibility, I mean, or 1 o'clock, I'll work with it.
Yeah.
And I think, even our customer would understand. I mean, like I said, alcohol is not a big percentage of our revenue, so even if we restrict it to 1 o'clock, customers will still want to come in and just enjoy our food without the alcohol. So.
I mean, my concern is I don't want to put anything in the way of your success, and that's really important.
I'll tell you, everybody in the whole area will be back here if you give them
Yeah,
2
I mean,
a.m.
I want everybody to succeed, but, I feel it's our obligation to protect the town and the neighbors and take this seriously. So, again, I'm not necessarily against a 2 a.m. license, but there's no track record here. Selectman Green has brought up the fact that this is a relatively new establishment, not only in Brookline, but in general. So let's get some history and some track record, and we can entertain a request in the future to extend.
So I guess the message is be a good neighbor, and we'll listen.
All right, thanks.
So what I will do is move approval of the application.
My name's Z. I'm the other partner. So I just got a quick question. Just want to clarify a little bit. So I know that on Sunday through Thursday, our alcohol license ends at 12. Are we still allowed to open till 12? Or
We're
are we
allowed to open until 2.
until 2? I mean,
Well,
We were,
so we've heard from Mr. Kluckner that logistically, it's better if the CV license and the alcohol license terminate at the same time. So that's a decision of this board, if we want to have the two match.
I don't know, I'd want to talk to the police department about that and what kind of issues that relates to.
We could continue this hearing for 1 week. Next week is town meeting, right?
Yes.
We could do that.
continue it to right before town meeting, and so you would want to serve food until 2
right, we want
a.m.
to serve food. At least have the opportunity to serve food till 2.
So
we want to try that out. This is a new area.
So the question, do we have any other CV licenses which have different hours than the alcohol license?
I don't believe so. Well, I would like to verify that.
In the interest of full disclosure, I will vote against the CV license till 2 a.m. I think that we've had history with late openings and deliveries and noise, and that's led to problems. And I think that the same logic for the alcohol license applies to the CV license, at least in my mind.
We're not gonna, because we don't know what hour exactly we're gonna open till. The location we have in Malden right now, the liquor license till 1 a.m. But Sunday through Thursday, we close the store at 12. We don't open till 1 a.m. But I'm just saying, like, if we would like to have the opportunity to check it out, see if we can make money during the late night hours. If we can, obviously, we're not gonna stay open.
I'm torn. Clearly, if there are operational issues, it's not something we've done before. My inclination is to approve the reduced hours, and then if you want to open later after having having a track record and you've been a good neighbor, you can apply. That would be my inclination. And so, and we're talking weeknights, Sunday and through Thursday till midnight, and then 1 a.m. So we're only talking 1 hour's difference here.
Because 90% of our customer base are students. A lot of them actually drive from, to our current restaurants. A lot of them actually drive from BU and as far as like Worcester to come to our restaurant to eat. So alcohol sales has never been a problem. We never had heavy drinking happening at our restaurant, but we do have a lot of people coming to our restaurant late, and that's why we open until 1 a.m. in Malden. I mean, that's a very remote location. It's really far from a lot of the schools around this area, and people are still driving up north to our restaurant around that time. And I think if we aren't able to open past 1 a.m. On weekends, that could actually hurt our business. And I understand your concerns for the area, and just based on it hasn't been a long track record, but we have been managing our restaurant for a year now, and we never had drinking issues at our restaurant.
Okay, so if...
To me, there's a little bit of a question, though, of fairness, when that would be later than everybody else in the area, except for Matt Murphy's, which is kind of grandfathered in from
2 o'clock would be...
They're the only
yeah.
ones that are 2 o'clock.
I thought we were all
Village
agreed on
Smokehouse
1
is
o'clock.
1. Yeah, these guys are arguing for later.
But I guess the nature of the business for us is really we focus more on food. Maybe for some of the other establishments, they rely a little bit heavier on alcohol sales.
Well, I think what I'm hearing from our town administrators, if we're going to have different hours for the alcohol versus the CV, then he wants to consult with our police department to see
Okay.
if there are operational issues, because that's not something we normally do.
Okay.
So that would require us
Yeah, I'm
to...
concerned that if somebody comes in to the restaurant and you have a liquor license, there's an expectation that you would serve, but, how, it would be...
I do understand. There will be an increased, operational difficulty with that. And so I'm not trying to give you guys a hard time. Maybe we'll just set a date for us to come back in to look at the issue again. I mean, today we can do the 12 and 1, and then on a later date.
Yeah, and another thing you should know is the licenses get renewed at the end of the year.
Right.
So that would be an opportunity to revisit this.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be try it out and see if
Okay.
you want it.
Okay.
And then if you want it and you've been a good neighbor and none of the neighbors have shown up here.
Yeah.
So, but if there are issues, they will, believe me.
Right,
It's
I
a very
understand.
active precinct.
Yep.
So, Ms. Frawley.
I have one comment and one question. The comment is, I'm concerned about the parking, because it's pretty clear there'll be parking in the town parking lot, and that's going to make it harder for the volunteers and the elected town activists and others to come to town hall. So that's very concerning to me. I wonder if that could be a condition that their customers not park in the town parking lot during the week, Monday through Thursday, when we have meetings at night.
I don't think we can
do that.
do that.
There's a history in that site. It's been a restaurant for as long as I can remember.
No, I think the site started out maybe 10 years ago as a bicycles in the windows, and it was a heart shop before that, a charity shop before that. It's
No.
never had a liquor license there, to my
No, it's been a
knowledge.
Thai place, I think it was.
It was a Japanese place, and then it was an American
Did it have a full liquor
accent.
license?
I don't know if it had, but it had the same number of seats.
So my question is, why is there, I sincerely wonder why it needs a full liquor license. Usually beer and wine goes very well with that type of food. Most Middle Eastern restaurants I go to have only beer and wine. It looks like it's just a very valuable commodity once you grant it, and if it flips, as I've seen this board have to deal with a few years ago, it becomes a very valuable sales commodity, and it's a very precious item. I don't think it should just be given out easily, let alone with a very short track record. I think beer and wine would be more appropriate. I feel very strongly about that.
Okay, you hear you. Any other comment? Okay, so I will move approval of the application of the Barbecue Lamb Brothers LLC, DBA Wow Barbecue, Steve Liu, owner, manager for a common victular license at 320 Washington Street. At what point is it appropriate to put the condition?
I would do it there, under the first vote.
Okay, and then do I do the vote separately?
Yes.
Okay, so with the condition that the hours of operation from Sunday through Friday, through Thursday, be from 11:30 a.m. to midnight, and then the hours of operation on
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday be from 11:30 to 1 a.m. All those in favor, please say aye.
That's for food and alcohol.
No, that's just for food.
That's the food.
Okay. Food and alcohol.
Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
That's me. Aye. The chair votes aye. Then I'll also move approving the application of the Barbecue Lamb Brothers, DBA Wow Barbecue, Steve Liu, owner, manager, holder of a common victualler license at 320 Washington Street for an entertainment license to include radio, tape music, TV, instrumental music, and a vocalist. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. I'll move the approval of the application of the Barbecue Lamb Brothers LLC DBA Wow Barbecue, Steve Liu, owner, manager, holder of a common victualler and entertainment license at 320 Washington Street for an all-kinds alcoholic beverage license as a common victualler at 320 Washington Street. Do I need to put the hours?
Yes, please.
With the same hours as the first, as the common victualler? Do I need to say anything more, Kate? No.
So 12 o'clock.
So it ends at 12.
Starts at noon.
So it starts at noon on,
Sunday through Thursday, noon to 1 a.m.
to midnight.
Yep.
And then Friday, Saturday, noon to 1 a.m.
1 a.m.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And lastly, I move approval of the application of the Barbecue Lamb Brothers LLC DBA Wow Barbecue, Steve Liu, owner, manager, holder of an all-kinds alcoholic beverage license as a common victualler entertainment license at 320 Washington Street for the appointment of Yi Peng as an alternate manager. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you.
All right, thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, so I got through my first licensing hearing. Okay, warrant articles. So this is the last session, we'll be meeting before town meeting, but this is our last session where we'll have an opportunity to get something into the supplement in the combined reports. So first article before us is Article 7. Melissa?
Hello. So you already heard earlier tonight, part of the plan for the resolution of the snow and ice deficit. This is another piece of that plan, which is to recommend appropriation of $1.1 million from the overlay surplus recently declared by the Board of Assessors, and we are recommending that that be appropriated to the snow and ice budget in FY15. The recommended vote is on the second page of the memo that I prepared.
Has the advisory committee?
Yes, they voted this earlier tonight.
Okay.
Is this a reconsideration? Did we vote?
So we had you hold the vote because we didn't have a firm number yet, and that was what Andy and I were working on. So now that we have a firm number for snow and ice, what the deficit is, how we're going to resolve it, the recommendation is 1.1 million from overlay.
But it's not, we didn't take a vote previously, is what you're saying?
Correct.
So
On the
there's no-
whole budget.
No, this is
Article
FY15.
7. This
Oh.
is
This is
15.
Okay.
fiscal 15.
So this
Budget
does not
amendment.
require reconsideration.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion, questions? This seems pretty straightforward as far as I'm concerned. So, hearing no discussion or questions, I will move that we recommend to town meeting favorable action on the recommended vote on page 17-2 to town meeting. All those in favor? Please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
And warrant Article 9, Mr. Fry.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ernie Fry, Precinct 7, petitioner for Article 9. It's probably rather unusual for a person to come before the selectmen to say, "You approved my petition before, I'd like you to now reject it."
It's happened.
But that's the essence of the reason that I'm coming before you today, or tonight.
There's no
and-
pleasing some people.
No, there is not. There is not. This warrant article was proposed in hopes that it would be rather innocuous and would receive little resistance, and I was very surprised that it received the amount of resistance from the administrative advisory committee that it did. Sometimes it's close. None of the votes were anywhere near close. So in hopes that the debate at town meeting will be less contentious than it would be between the advisory committee and the Board of Selectmen, I'm asking that the Board of Selectmen for a no action vote on this warrant article.
Well, I think I would accede to your wishes. I would support your suggestion. I think, especially, this is intended to be kind of an honorarium kind of thing, that if it's not the kind of thing you want to be controversial. So I think it's a good thing not to have controversy around this particular one. So I would support it.
I think we have to move
Yes,
for reconsideration and then no action.
Correct. Correct. So I will move reconsideration. So all those in favor of reconsideration, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
I'll make a motion now for no action on Article 9.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. You have your no action recommendation.
I thank you very much.
Okay. Article 12.
I can address this, Mr. Chairman. The Article 12 is the article seeking to amend the existing bylaw regulating the removal of snow and ice from public sidewalks. And as you know, this one has been a somewhat complicated and difficult article. There's been a lot of proposed changes that the Town Administrator Task Force proposed that you endorsed previously. And there was a lot of activity at the advisory committee to sort of narrow the focus, make it a little simpler, and I support that. I think what you have in front of you is now the new main motion that has been approved by the advisory committee, and I recommend that the board also adopt the same version, which does a couple of main things. Number one, and most importantly, it increases the penalties for violation, and it also deals with some of the administrative, logistical issues around when the time period begins and how that's communicated to the public. And it also cleans up a couple of other minor things, but it does not include, for example, a new administrative appeal mechanism. It continues to be a non-criminal disposition that ultimately gets resolved in the district court. And it also does not include, the task force proposed elimination of the automatic warning for residential. This does not change that, so there would continue to be an automatic first warning violation for residential homeowners.
Is there, has anyone I know we had a bunch of these that people contested, and they were kind of just sitting around, they hadn't been sent over to the
They
court
have
yet?
been. They have been.
Okay, and what was the court's reaction to getting that?
I think
Pile of-
they would be eager to have the town engage in an administrative appeal mechanism.
That's what I would have guessed, which is why I suggested that in the first place.
My feeling is that this is a good start, and I'm afraid that if we started to add back provisions, the whole thing would fail. That's my own personal opinion, but if the board feels differently, then go for it.
I'm willing to go with the flow on this one.
The Czarina of snow over there is pensive.
I will tell you that I think you'll get some opposition to that from one gentleman I'm aware of who has studied the process and feels that the administrative procedure that we had didn't quite comply with the law, although I will tell you that the district court, Brookline District Court, would be very eager for us to work with us, and maybe we can do it in the next round of changes to the bylaw.
Well, I mean, even for citizens, it's much easier to be able to call some office in town and schedule a mutually convenient time versus having to appear in district court, at the time that's convenient for them. And this is going to be, I imagine they're going to do these things kind of in bulk. So you might be sitting there for a long time to get your case heard. I don't think that's a good solution for citizens who want to challenge a ticket under this or for the town. But I guess I'm willing to go with this for now, and maybe I'll continue to try to work on this for a future town meeting.
So I know this article emerged from a town administrators working group? Task force. I'm wondering if that task force has weighed in either formally or informally on the series of proposed changes we've made.
Well,
over the past.
we haven't really convened, it's not really a public group.
I'm
but-
one of the task force
Yeah,
members.
she's one. Dennis Doty, who was an active member, is now on the advisory committee, and he and Stanley worked on this, and I think under the circumstances,
Many of the task force members are, like the commissioner of DPW and people that aren't going to try to tell town meeting how they should vote on a warrant article. So there were only a few of us that were citizens. One was Frank Caro, who, of course, had originally brought up the warrant article with town meeting about snow and ice removal that kind of sparked the town administrator to set up his task force. So Frank would, I'm sure, like to see more rather than less.
So it's not expected that we're going to have members of the task force stand up at town meeting and say, we're not going far enough. I'm just trying to figure out how much division there is and.
No, well, the administrative appeal process was my idea, and I guess I'm,
Well, that's the big
with some
omission here.
reluctance, willing to let it go, so I don't see who else would be standing up to argue about it.
So, I will, with that in mind, I will move the motion before us, which is the advisory committee's motion, which is on page 17-8 of our packet. Any other comments, discussion? Anyone want to say anything? Yes, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we have a favorable action recommendation of Article 8 in agreement with the advisory committee. And...
Article 12, I think.
Article 12, I'm sorry. Yes. It's getting late. Okay, so this is Article 14, and this was put on our agenda at the request of Selectman Heller or Selectman Franco?
I'll
One
take
of-
ownership of it.
Okay, so shoot. Floor is yours.
So, the board may remember that the recommendation currently of the Board of Selectmen is for referral of this article to a committee, I believe to a Selectmen's committee. And I think that we've had some new members. There's been a lot of debate about this. I personally am in favor of the motion that the petitioners are offering, which is a motion to divide the question and send a portion of it to a Selectmen's committee, but to pass a portion of the article that we have in front of us. That portion would, in effect, say the town could not purchase bottled water using town funds, and there are appropriate exclusions for fire and police and public safety personnel, and opportunities for town funds to be used to purchase water, where the director of public health deems it necessary to protect public or occupational health. So to be clear, this is not the article that we discussed at length before that would prohibit the distribution of bottled water at town events, or that would require, huge capital investments to make sure that there are water fountains in all the public parks. This is a pretty tailored motion now that would just prohibit the town from buying bottled water for use in office settings, so in effect, inside a town hall.
Okay, I have a question, which may be for the petitioners, but today was DPW Day, and the kids all go up to the DPW town garage, and they see the big trucks, and they get told about composting and stuff like that. And they were each given a bag, which I have my bag with me. Which
What goodies do you have in the bag?
Well, it did include some goldfish, but
Is there any chocolate?
but it included this as well. So here's my question. I was saying to them, oh, you're giving out bottled water. And I said, well, I think if this passed, that they could have a big thing of water and give glasses. And they said, they didn't think the teachers would like that because the kids would be spilling the water all over the place. But can you, if they had generic little bottles or something, could they fill them out from a big thing, a big water thing? Would that be acceptable, or what would you recommend to them to do under those circumstances?
That's a good question, because it puts a sharp focus on what this warrant article says. This warrant article doesn't speak to that, Nancy. This is talking about use of town funds to buy bottled water for use in municipal buildings when there are alternatives. So a distribution by DPW, while it's regrettable, is not under the purview of this warrant article in any way.
But they would have used town funds to buy those.
But this says in offices, Nancy.
Yeah, it's not in an office. Okay, I get it.
It says the department's own general use in offices.
But let me just ask you, from your point of view, what would you recommend to them to do under the circumstances?
I would recommend that kids bring their own water bottles that are reusable, that they not distribute these. We have not even begun to address the negative health impact of the bottle leaching into the contents. We should protect our children from that. We should not be enabling that. So that's my preference. This warrant article doesn't speak to that at all.
So if they set up a water cooler and they urged the kids to bring their own water bottle, and they could have a couple places to fill up, that would be good.
Sure, but I would like to remind you that 25 years ago, we didn't even think of bottled water, and nobody died of dehydration at a town event. So we've got a mindset about the convenience of water, and you have to have water with you.
But I will tell you, this was always weird, and I think it's still weird now, but I have never liked carbonated beverages. And the whole time I was growing up when I was a kid, and every time there was anything, people would be giving out sodas. And I would be actually there thirsty because I didn't like the soda. And I was one person who was delighted when water started appearing in bottles.
You have a lot of company. A lot of people don't like carbonated beverages or what's called sweetened, sugary, what's SSBs beverages. But that's not the choice. The choice is between tap water and bottled water. And I suggest that the industry would have you believe that if you take away bottled water, people are going to have to drink Coke, even if they hate it. No, you can go home and get some water. You can go to a restaurant and get some water. You have many alternatives. And we exercised those alternatives for years. This is a brand new thing. In the history and you take a long view here, bottled water is a very new phenomenon. It's taken on, it's a multi-hedra now. It is dominating our landfills and our production and public dialogue.
Well, our commissioner's a big advocate of tap water, so.
He should be. He's on the MWRA board.
Go on.
Let me add, what I would have suggested to DPW was, in the context of an educational program that was designed to get Brookline off of bottled water, to have reusable bottles that people can take home or fill up at DPW, to begin to get people to see the viability of that alternative to bottled water, as opposed to the sort of command approach that, you shall not do this. I guess one other I support the revised warrant article, because I really, really dislike bottled water, especially when my kids leave them in my car. But how we get people off of the habit of bottled water is really, it has to be done in a way that's going to be effective long-term. Right now, people can go into BJ's or Sam's and get pallets full of bottled water, and that's what they'll do. If we don't change the sort of mentality, through, I think, an educational program, as well as providing access to water, clean water, because water out of the faucet is not necessarily healthy. As you know. But the other point I'd like to make is related to the issue of process. Is I don't want the government, even though I am the government, telling me that bottled water does not taste as good as tap water. That's just not, the role of government. And I think when we make proposals like this, we have to be very careful that we sort of address people respectfully and not, impose certain ideas that, aren't necessarily ideas that, really make that much sense. That sort of stood out in the original proposal, and I know it's not in the current proposal, but I just want to mention that because the process by which we bring issues like this before the public is very important. People really want to be asked, what their opinion is and what their, how something's going to affect them, even if you don't go along with what they would like you to go along or like you to do ultimately. The fact that you've given them enough respect to ask, how is this going to affect you, makes a huge difference. So that's my
Thank
reaction.
you. I appreciate your taking time to say that, and I agree with you. I also would say that they're not mutually exclusive. The educational piece should go forward, and I would love it if every entering freshman at high school got a BHS water bottle, if every kid who went to first grade got a, Lawrence School, my school, reusable water bottle. I mean, it's just a great way to spread the word. Thank you for taking time to explain
My
that.
agency used to distribute Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust, back when we were called that, water bottles. And, people love them. So.
Selectman Heller, do you have anything to?
I do. I would like to just say that I'm supportive of the petitioner's revised article. I agree that there are a lot of other issues to work out, and that's part of the intention committee. But I do think that this is really, at its essence, is an educational opportunity to have people understand and think about what it is they're doing when they buy a bottle of water, rather than going to the water fountain with a cup, or taking their own reusable bottle and filling it. And it helps people, hopefully we can help people understand that this does increase, by the use of these plastic bottles, increase their carbon footprint. And we need to take every measure we can, every step we can, to reduce that and reduce our use of plastic and fossil fuels, which go into making these things. So I'm supportive of it. I applaud the petitioners for bringing it forward, and I will vote to reconsider.
I have a question under the language. No town officer, et cetera, shall use town funds purchase bottled water for the department's own general use in offices. So the advisory committee, when they serve dinner, can offer bottled water, because that's not in an office, that's in a conference room. We could here have bottled water, because that's in a conference room, that's not in an office. So I suspect that's not within the your intent, but that's what the words say.
Those words were chosen in consultation with, Clint Richmond, town meeting member, precinct 6, co-petitioner. Those words were chosen in consultation with town council and the director of public health. But I believe offices here really refers to office space. If someone wants to narrow it that much, I would be extremely disappointed. And that was not our intent, because it was originally, when it was submitted, it was much broader, and we reacted to comments that we received from town department heads that were collected by the Department of Public Health. So it really wasn't meant to exclude conference rooms at all. So
see that?
Can you see my frowny? Can you see my frowny face from here?
I think the conference room is part of the office, but the meeting room downstairs, that's an interesting question.
I don't know.
The public meeting room isn't...
To me...
When you lease office space, if you lease the 50th floor of the Prudential Center, you don't say, I'm leasing offices, and then I have office conference rooms. It's on a kind of a square footage basis. That the building department has authorized this as office space, and that's what we mean by offices. How you divide it up is your choice.
So to me...
Mr. Chairman, if I may add something, the question is, why is the town spending taxpayer money to provide bottled water for town business when tap water is readily available? That's really the baseline here.
No, I get that, and that's why, when I look at a law, I look at the words, and I know what your intent is, and I would perhaps agree with that intent, but this isn't taking effect until a year from June, so I don't see any problem with referring it to get the language right and bring back a solid article, and that would be...
Mr. Chairman, we could do two things. We could try and substitute the word office space if you want, if the moderator would allow that as a clarifying wording change, or if the the committee wants to expand at the end of the referral, I certainly would welcome their input on any sections that were passed even now. Do you want to propose an amendment to say office space? I'm fine with that.
No, I'd like to propose the vote we had. But,
Well, I don't know, I think Selectman Franco and myself were we had voted with the petitioners the last time, and I think we were on the losing side, so we cannot
it was
move.
4-1, so.
There were two separate votes.
Oh, okay, that's right.
There
I was on the losing side. Okay. So I cannot move reconsideration.
So,
I will move reconsideration.
Just because I've been here all evening to make that.
come on up. Join the party.
We've been here longer.
These are not refreshments for the after party. They're part of my show and tell for this event. And so is, I have some documents from the Center for Science for the Public Interest, which is a fantastic public interest group concerned about food additives. And initially, I had a document about the dangers of obesity as well, but I left it in the wrong pile at home.
From bottled water?
From various kinds of bottled water, okay? John Harris, Precinct 8, and Selectman Daley, your example with your bag there, I suspect if bottled water is not allowed at town functions, the kids would find a small bottle of soda in that bag. And that's exactly what I'm afraid of. What I have here are 4 bottles of bottled water. They're 20-ounce bottles. They're all by a single company, the Coca-Cola company, and they all are probably from the Northampton bottling plant, which means the Northampton municipal tap water. So there's a difference, though. Even though they're all 20 ounces, this particular one has 65 grams of sugar in it, too. Okay, so it's 20 ounces of water minus a teeny fraction. This particular one, the diet version, has aspartame in it, which you will see on your list of chemicals to avoid from the Centers for Science and the Public Interest. This one here is Powerade Zero calorie sports drink, has blue dye number 1, which you will see a caution on the list right there. And again, these are all bottled water. This is bottled water. It is the same bottle. It's PET plastic. It's 20 ounces. It has virtually the same amount of water in it. But this is the only one that warrant Article 14 would either not allow town funds for or prohibit altogether. To me, it makes no sense. So basically, only to buy. So this is the least harmful of the whole bunch, the one that is only water. It makes no sense to just focus on that. A brief history lesson, moving on. Ralph Nader,
I'm going to just tell you, because I brought this question up with Mr. Richmond before, and I think you raise a good point. It would exceed the scope of this warrant article at this time because it's been advertised, and you could not expand the warrant article to the point you would like to include those other beverages.
So what I'm actually speaking in favor of tonight is I love dialogue, I love debate, but what I'm hoping this board will do is vote not to reconsider. If it does vote to reconsider, I hope it has the same vote that it had, last time. So a brief history, and I'm moving very, very quickly. In the 1970s, Ralph Nader, you will remember those with gray hair, The Chemical Feast. This is the book that caused cyclamate to be banned. It was a tremendous advantage. The downside is that after cyclamate was banned, the beverage industry invented aspartame, and we are still finding aspartame in drinks. Pepsi Cola has announced that it's not going to put aspartame in its drinks anymore because of public pressure. But Coca-Cola has not made such an announcement, and I bought this just a couple of days ago. It has aspartame in it, a carcinogen, and it is on your avoid list that I...
We get the point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Environmental Defense Fund, the same thing. The concern was the cancer-causing agents in the environment. Okay. And then my final thing...
Thank you.
Moving very quickly. Basically, the Selectmen's Committee on Climate Change, the comment was made that a message should be sent to the bottlers, and that's why 14A should be approved. Well, the bottlers have already considered all this, and they've already got a plan. And The point is that banning bottled water alone, water in quotes, will not lead to a net decrease in water consumption or of them putting, in fact, water in beverages. What the bottlers, in containers, sorry, what the bottlers will do, and they're already starting to do that, the definition of 14A, it only prohibits still water in plastic bottles. So they will put still water in cans, aluminum cans, or they will put carbonated water in cans, and this is Dasani, a Coca-Cola product, the same as these others. These would not be prohibited or town funds through 14. Or they will put bottled water or any of their other liquids in these Tetra Paks, not prohibited by 14. Or they are inventing a plethora of new mega weird chemical concoctions, vitamin water, smart water, energy water, nutrient-enhanced water beverage with vitamins.
Okay, Mr.
Raspberry water
Harris,
contains no juice.
we
You get the idea. The point is, the best thing that can happen now is a full and free debate on everything regarding the containers for these beverages and the ingredients of the beverages without putting a finger on the scale and kind of privileging just one particular one the way 14A does. So I'm hoping first that you folks vote not to reconsider. Second, if you do reconsider, I hope that it ends up being the same vote as last week that ends up being a recommendation of referral of the entirety of 14.
Thank you.
I just want to point out that when we set up the Selectmen's Committee, we don't have to restrict them just to the
subject matter of the
subject,
warrant article.
yeah, they could actually consider the things you're talking about if we set the committee up that way, to make it more expansive.
I'm in favor of debate on every aspect regarding this issue.
Okay.
So, Mr. Franco.
I have moved reconsideration of our previous position on Article 14.
Point of order, I think it's called. Could we ask the proponents of Article 14 to respond to Mr. Harris's statements briefly?
Okay.
I'll take a crack at it. If you look at the volume of bottles that end up not recycled or recycled, bottled water is way up here. It outsells every other drink. And the reason it does that is because when the carbonated and sweetened beverage market started to dry up, the industry looked to keep their bottom line plump. So they hyped bottled water. They want you to think bottled water is great. So we're talking about reducing the volume of solid waste, and the bottled water is the constituent if you go by volume. Is that not responsive? I'm sorry. There are far more bottled water bottles than there are carbonated or sweetened drink bottles. It is the leading product in the industry. Clint is going to do a better job. I'm sorry.
I'll hand out this material here for you. This is a
More
preview of
material?
what you might see at town meeting. But the second question that addresses some of these issues. But bottled water is the fastest growing. It's not yet in the lead. It will be overtaking carbonated soda in the next couple of years. So it's not there yet, but it's the second category. In fact, bottled water is outselling, or is being consumed at a greater rate than tap water. They've been so successful. So we're starting with the beverage that is the fastest growing, that has a ready substitute, that always comes in plastic, whereas sodas, a large percentage of them come in aluminum. They might switch to aluminum, as Mr. Harris suggested, but that I haven't really seen that. The recycling rates are much lower for bottled water. And we're going after the one that everyone keeps thinking is healthy and ignoring sort of the other problems. So, in the DPW example, the DPW would not be handing out soda to children. We don't allow that in our school system. I don't think they'll be allowing it at DPW Day either, and the teachers would be extremely upset about that. So I don't really think that's going to happen in that situation.
Okay, Mr. Franco has a motion to reconsider, so I would like to take a vote on the motion to reconsider. So, I'll second it. All those in favor of reconsideration? Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
I think I'm going to say aye, but I have a lot of
Just, you said aye. And I'm going to say no. So I lose, which is fine. So,
And also, I would have lost if I said no.
So I will move that we divide the question so that sections 8.35.2, 8.35.3, and 8.354B of the warrant article shall be considered and acted on separately from the other sections of the article.
so this is the, you're moving the motion offered by the petitioner?
Correct.
Do you have this, Kate? Okay. So does everybody understand the motion? So it's dividing the question plus the, a recommendation of favorable action. So it's a recommendation, favorable action on the prohibition of town funds for bottled water for office uses, and then the rest of it should be studied by a selectmen's committee. That's the summary, so.
It's referral.
Referral, yes. So all those in favor of Selectman Franco's motion, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
I'm going to vote no.
So are we taking two separate votes on the parts, or?
No, I took it together,
Okay.
unless anyone
No,
has an
that's fine.
objection. And that's going to be our recommendation at town meeting. So moving on. Mr. Kleckner,
Yes. Here.
Building Commission.
Mr. Chairman, there is, on the matter of the Building Commission, there's a vacancy, and expiring, expiring 2015, and the sole candidate is Nathan Peck. All those in favor of Nathan Peck, say aye.
Aye.
And then, excuse me, on the matter of the Devotion School Building Committee, last week, we did replace the vacancies that existed, and we carried over until this week some other vacancies, and I've consulted with former chairman, the incoming chairman, Ms. Daly, and others, and before you, and we see some other changes being proposed. So the school committee has identified David Pollock to replace resigning school committee or expiring school committee member Abby Cox. We are also recommending that Peter Rose replacement, who's Mary Ellen Dunn, will replace him, but only in effective after July 1st, 2015. And then to replace other vacancies, Arden Reamer. So,
As the parent.
Arden Reamer as the parent, and then Roberta Winitzer as the neighborhood representative.
Yeah, Roberta is also a member of the Historical Society.
So that's the suggested slate of candidates to fill those vacancies. So I guess I would consider a vote on those recommended changes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
And that concludes our business for Tuesday, May 19th. See you all at town meeting.